regular meeting of July 17th to order. The first order of business is the appointment of alternates. Diane's here, okay.
I'm not an alternate.
I think we don't.
Oh, you don't need an alternate.
We don't need an alternate tonight.
You've got your 6.
I've graduated up, so, okay.
Okay. First order of business is the approval of the minutes of June 21st. I've read them. I didn't see anything that caught my attention as needing fixing. Anybody else?
I had a couple of comments.
Yep.
Chairman. On the vote to approve the minutes from the previous meeting, I was an abstention. I think it's recorded as an aye.
From June 5?
Yeah. And at the end, at the motion to adjourn, you have it as 5-0. It should be 6-0 for the text.
Tell me what line that is that last line.
Very last line, I believe, motion to adjourn.
You mean somebody didn't want to stay?
No, there were 6 votes, but it was marked as 5-0.
We all wanted to vote.
Got it.
Okay.
We all went in together.
Any other corrections? Bruce?
I have an addition that I want to propose in line 85. It follows the summary comments about, let me just see if I'm in the right place. It had to do with the presentation, the conceptual presentation from the Silverman Group. And it ends with a statement, this is line 84, there was a public comment on the access point to the river. And then it ends. And I know one of the very last statements was my own, and I pointed out that the presentation failed to address affordable housing, and it didn't include a commitment to the required mixed-use development in that zone. End of insertion. But I think it's important that the record indicate that that was brought up. It was brought up more than once, and I brought it up as one of the last statements. And the representative from the Silverman Group pointed out that they weren't intending to discuss those topics, that night.
Right.
But I think it's important, and it should be in the minutes, that it was raised. It was brought up once more, because there are 3 other meetings where we've brought up those issues relative to that. Not that specific proposal, because that's the first time we've ever seen drawings that had 540 units.
Yeah.
So I think the insertion, and let me just repeat it, in line 85 where it's blank, but I propose inserting the words, Commission pointed out the presentation failed to address affordable housing or to include a commitment to the required mixed-use development. That's basically what I said. That's an
Anybody else have a
observation.
comment about that?
The format of these comments, this isn't quotes. The minutes of our meetings are not based on quotes.
That's
I think
correct.
that's an adequate representation of what I said.
Anybody else have comments? I think. Okay. We have a motion to approve the minutes as amended. Ann? Second? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Oh,
Second.
but somebody already
Donna.
seconded.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries 6-0. Okay, we have quite a few items on the agenda tonight, and we're going to start with the election of the officers, but I would make the comment that we want to be very thorough, but I think brisk tonight. So if you have some comments, please be succinct. Okay, the first order of business is to take nominations for the open vice chairman positions.
I would like to nominate Tony Vress for the position.
Okay. Any others?
I was thinking of nominating Bruce, although, to be honest, I didn't really do any preparation, but I think from an experience and knowledge standpoint, I think he would make an excellent vice chair.
Okay. Any others? Thank you. Okay. All those in favor of Tony Braz, raise your hand. Ian? Okay. All those in favor of Bruce? Okay. So Tony is nominated, or is elected 4-2. Okay, and congratulations, Tony. Tony's been in town 30-some years and has served in the Historical Society board for many, many years. 8 years. And our friend Kevin, who has moved to Maine, has recommended Tony to the party, so that's how he got here. And we're glad he's here. He's an attorney retired attorney, so he's got time. So we welcome him. Okay, the next order of business is a Plan of Conservation and Development update. And I believe we have a...
Mr. Chair, I've asked Glenn Chalder to come tonight, and knowing that how busy your agenda is, it's going to just give you a very quick update on where the Planning Commission is in the POCD update process.
Thank you very much, and I think brisk is the word of the day. I'm Glenn Chalder. I've worked with the Planning Commission in preparation of an update to the Plan of Conservation and Development. As you're probably aware, a Plan of Conservation and Development is usually updated once every 10 years, but because of all the changes that have happened since the adoption of the current plan in 2017, the Planning Commission felt it just made sense to revisit an interim update, if you will. And also they want to put more of a focus on implementation this time around. They feel with COVID, implementation kind of got interrupted a little bit, and so it's time to reinvigorate that effort. We had a public meeting in June 27th at the basement at the library. We had good attendance, good comments. The Planning Commission has reviewed a comments list where we summarize everything that we had received on verbally and through written correspondence. And they went through that at their meeting last week. They've asked me now to update the document so that we can head to a meeting in August where we expect to review those comments. And if the commission feels ready, they're going to move towards a public hearing on adoption, they think in late September. So we just wanted to bring up to speed on the process. There are strategies and recommendations in the plan that do include the zoning commission. So any thoughts or feedback you might have as we go forward will be much appreciated. And then sometime in that window between August and September, in terms of the public hearing dates, the Commission's anticipating the possibility of doing a prioritization exercise. So we may be reaching out to you individually, not as a commission, but individual commission members, and say, hey, from the different strategies and policies and action steps in the plan, which are your top priorities? And then we're going to kind of tabulate them all up and say, okay, you know what? And not just the zoning commission, zoning, planning, board of selectmen, et cetera, but based on the feedback from everybody, and say, look, we think these are our highest priorities, and then we can devote our efforts to that. So that's about as brisk as I think I can be. That's where we've been. That's where we're going, our plan, and we look forward to your continued participation and assistance as we go on. Any questions that you might have for me?
Some dates, time frame, like when?
I would say that, again, August 8th is our date for the Planning Commission meeting to review the document. I'm in the process of having the maps revised and editing the text.
Your polling of.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, commission
I
members.
apologize. I think that what we talked about with the commission is that statutes require a 65-day notice period from the date that they propose the plan for public hearing and the actual public hearing. The prioritization would not be an implemented part of the document. It would be a corollary, accessory thing. So we're talking about doing that in that 65-day window to get input from everybody and create momentum for implementation. So I think that would probably happen end of August, beginning of September, sometime in that window.
To start.
Yeah, and it would be,
Okay.
I guess when I've done this in the past, it's been you would receive an envelope in the mail. I've tried to do this online, I just can't figure out a way to do it. So something in the mail with colored dots, and you get to mark it up and wipe it out and put colored dots. They're color coded, so.
Good stuff.
You end up with polka dots, I'm sorry. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be brisk.
Well done. Excellent.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a site plan application of Ensign Bickford Aerospace and Defense to site plan amendment to add an expansion to their parking lot.
Hi, I'm Gus Jasminski from Ensign Bickford. With us tonight, we have Katie Charla. She's the project manager for us moving into the building, and Marcus Podak from Godfrey Hoffman Architects. They're the engineers for the project. So originally, when the building was built in 1989, we had the extra parking expansion as part of our original design. But at the time, we didn't need the parking, so we held it off in reserve. So it was designed but not built because we didn't need the parking. We reacquired the building in January. We're actually renovating now for our operations, and based on our operations today, we need the extra parking. So the design is just the way it was from 1989. The big difference really is the drainage. Over the last 30 years, it's become a lot more technical because it's low impact drainage. There's a lot more to it. And we've been talking to the engineering department on some of the details on how all that gets done, and there's just a few more details to work on it. The site, I'm guessing most of you haven't even seen it. While it isn't really in a central location, there's a long access driveway. None of the neighbors can see it. Behind us is Dino, and they're actually the only ones who can see the building, and we share the campus on Simsbury with them, so they know exactly what we're doing, and we're adding 52 spaces, and really pretty simple.
Okay. Anybody have questions on the application?
I just don't know about I know that George had shared with us a document today that there were some concerns about the engineering department and some comments, so I see some of them have not yet been addressed.
Yeah,
So-
and we'd like to just work those out. There's some difference between the engineers on what's actually required and who's designing it and what's required. So, I mean, there's some little things, they're not big things, but little details to finalize on the plans. And
Okay.
you can
So-
make that a condition of approval, and
I guess that was my only question, if we can,
yeah, oh
you
yeah.
know, as long as we can proceed with the assumption that those things
I
are.
was gonna recommend that you add a condition, it is in front of you, that asks the applicant to revise the plan set per the town engineer's letter of, or the 13th.
Yep.
So, yeah, so I think with that, there are some details, rate of flow and a couple of details where we believe that the applicant can satisfy that. So, I mean, I think it's a reasonable condition.
Other
And
comments?
that condition would be prior to the issuance of any site activity.
Yeah.
We could be.
That doesn't leave
Good.
there's no potential that the thing is going to go unaddressed or unresolved or not to the satisfaction of the engineers, this town. The only way to go forward under a condition that we have wording suggested for the condition, right?
Correct.
And there is no way to do something other than what the town engineers have called for.
Correct.
You're not going to be persuaded that
We
they're
get the-
mistaken.
If we get in a position where the applicant and staff disagree, we'll come back to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments? The only residences that are near there are out on Hot Meadow Street.
Yeah, Woodland
How
Street.
far
Woodland
away are
Street.
they?
Several hundred feet, but they're also down elevation-wise. So there's kind of a big hill behind them, and we're up on top of the hill. So there's woods and the hill, so they can't really see the building or the parking.
Can they receive any of the drainage?
No, no, I can assure you, I've been on the site many times, it's sharp sand, the water hits it and it disappears into the ground. Matter of fact, I was up there today, and all the rain we had over the weekend, we have, if you saw in the engineering report, we have several catch basins that aren't functioning because they're filled, the previous tenant never cleaned anything. And so the water builds up and it spills out, well, it just disappears. It doesn't run off the property. It goes about 5 feet and disappears, even with all the rain we had over the last month.
Okay. Any other comments? Do we have a motion, George?
Tonight you've got all of your collected draft motions in one packet. I figured it would be easier with
Very nice.
8 items, 9 items.
Reorganized here, really
Very
organized.
nice, very nice.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I also can show
I'll
it.
make a motion.
Donna said she'll make a motion, okay.
Okay, so I make the motion that the zoning commission approves ZC 23-25, 100 Gristmill Road, an application for a site plan amendment pursuant to section 11 of the zoning regulations to permit a plus or minus 24,000 square foot expansion, plus or minus 52 spaces, of an existing commercial parking lot restaurant at 100 Grist Mill Road, Assessor's Map G11, Block 103, Lot 005-25, in the I-2 zone, subject to the following conditions. 1, the project shall be developed in substantial conformance with the site plan set dated 6/5/23, revised 7/7/23, prepared by Godfrey Hoffman Hodge. 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit for this project, the applicant shall submit to the town of Simsbury an erosion and sediment control bond in a form acceptable to the town in the amount of $12,000. 3, prior to the release of any bonds for this project, the applicant shall submit 2 sets of Mylars and 1 paper set for signature and recordation. 4, prior to the issuance of a zoning and/or building permit for the project, the applicant shall revise the site plan set per the recommendations of the town engineer as depicted in the engineer's letter dated 7/13/23.
Do you have a second?
Okay.
And
All right,
You have a
I'll second it.
Okay, now we can have discussion. Is that really restaurant?
Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah.
I apologize.
It's
It's a commercial parking lot restaurant. No. Very much.
Yeah,
Watch this.
To the commercial parking lot.
So,
There you go.
okay.
How about that?
okay.
I think we could restate the motion without restaurant.
Yes, we can.
The second agree with that?
Just going
Seconds agrees with it.
Okay. Anything else? Any other comments? Okay, all in favor?
I,
Aye.
Opposed?
Never mind, I didn't do that.
You didn't do what?
I
Say
didn't say
anything.
aye because I can't vote, because I'm not seated. Never mind, I take it back.
Okay. 6-0, thank you, Gus.
It's the capital?
Next order of business is application ZC 23-30 of the Simsbury Historical Society. Is there someone here to talk about that? Yes.
I'm Bob Moody, president of the society.
Chairman,
Come up to the-
As you mentioned earlier, I'm currently on the board of the Historical Society, so I'm going to recuse myself from the board's consideration of this application.
Okay, that means you have to go hide out of earshot.
Really?
I think sitting in the halls, it would be acceptable.
No, that's the rule, you gotta be out of earshot. And
Really?
you can't be hand waving either. We'll come get you.
Sorry, Tony.
I don't know who decided that because you're on the board, you can't vote or you can't consider it. It's, I mean, these are all nonprofit
Yes.
things that are trying to do the best for the town. Anyway, I believe someone did go to the Ethics Commission and they said you didn't have to do it. But anyway, that was a different issue. Okay,
So Dave, as I mentioned earlier, I'm president of the society, but I'm deferring to Dagny Griswold, who is our project manager for this blacksmith shop, and she can give you a good overview of what the project entails.
thank you.
Stand at the podium. Well, basically,
You should, your name and address?
Dagny Griswold,
Okay.
21 Quarry Road,
Thank you.
Simsbury.
We are adding a small auxiliary building to our campus, which is close to 3 acres and that's probably not the best map. Do you want to show the other one?
Whatever you'd like me to.
That's a GIS map, the next one. That's more of a professional
I have it on.
site plan.
I'll give you the aerial first.
Okay, so, all right, so, I assume you're all familiar with the Historic Society site. So, the proposal, are you gonna do the next
you are.
one? The one with the red, that one. So the little red box inside the circle is what we're proposing, a small post and beam building. We're getting a kit from Country Carpenters. And we're going to have it's basically a museum, but it's going to have, half of it is blacksmith shop.
Excuse me.
The other half, indigenous American exhibits, so think Stone Age, Iron Age, tools used by different cultures over time, so there'll be exhibits of these things in the building, and it's designed with a door to come in off the stone driveway that's on the west side of it. It's going to be very close to the parking lot. There's going to be no need for handicap ramps because it's going to be designed sort of like a garage with concrete slab and then a stem wall for the wood to sit on, but you can notch out for the doors. So if you have a wheelchair, you can roll right in and roll right out the other door. 2 doors and windows. Do you want to show the little sketch or something? I don't
I'll
know.
show you. Want me your sketches?
Well, did you get a packet or only what was in?
We have it on electronically, we don't have. the
Okay,
paper, but-
so I did sketches of it, and when we've,
Those are available on the website.
Yeah.
so the point is, we're going to get professional CAD drawings once we have gotten the preliminary approvals to go ahead and start spending money on it. So basically, all we're asking for is approval for an auxiliary building on our campus. If you have questions or want more details, feel free.
They have questions? This is not a public hearing. Sorry.
Somebody asked then how does the forge get? How
Oh,
does
the forge.
How does the forge get aired?
Okay, so
Well, I didn't ask that.
okay, I'll explain.
Alternates can ask questions at
There you go.
the will of the chairman.
All right, I
Okay.
did not include a sketch
I'm
of
almost
the
gone.
vent pipe, but think of a little wood-burning stove in a house with a vent pipe. It's going to be the same idea. You have a metal round, and it can be a double pipe, so the outer doesn't get hot. It's insulated. The inner one is what gets hot, but it's insulated. And we've discussed, is it going to go straight up through the roof, which is, I think, what we're going to do, as opposed to another design is horizontally out and then up on the outside. I think we prefer the straight up. It's better draw that way. But it's designed, we have already got all this equipment that we can put together there. And we have exhibits of wonderful old artifacts that we're going to hang on walls or have little shelves and have signs with a little history of blacksmithing versus what kind of tools did the indigenous Americans use by comparison. Wood, bone, teeth, stone. So it's basically a little museum and a place where we can have kids come and have little classes. So there's the 20-foot wide area, we divide it sort of in half, 10 by 12, 10 by 12, and then the enclosed 6-foot deep porch areas where people come in, walk through, look at exhibits, or they can go into the other room where it's the indigenous American, but you can bring in chairs and tables for kids to sit and do little activities. There's going to be a high ceiling over the area where the forge is. We can use it indoors, Or we also have a portable forge you could set out on the lawn to do an exhibit. I just, a couple of weeks ago, went to a similar exhibit in Essex where they had no setup. They just had a guy show up on the lawn, have a portable forge, anvil, banging away on pieces of metal, showing us and giving history. And he was a history teacher who talked about forges on whaling ships because they needed to get new spears, or they go to the farm and make tools, horseshoes or tools that the farmers needed, shovels or whatever. And so it's meant to show the history, and we still have blacksmiths today that are making reproduction or fun things. So we will have people who do blacksmithing come and do demonstrations. But in the meantime, it'll just be a setup that people can look at. It's not going to be used every day with hot fires. But the firemen said, you have to be 20 feet away from other buildings, so it is. And it has to avoid the leach field, which it does. So in other words, we thought through the spot for it, and we don't anticipate any new buildings ever on our campus. It'll be pretty much done.
Good. Any questions? More questions?
Well, the one question that I had, Dagny answered, which was whether or not you were really going to have the actual demonstrations, with a blacksmith person, and you've addressed that.
Yes, we have a blacksmith who lives in Simsbury. I talked to him, and he does it as a hobby, but also to teach kids, like Boy Scouts or little demonstrations. The guy that I saw who did this in Essex is a teacher in, I believe, Lebanon, who will be living in Marlborough, but he teaches during the year, so summers, he's looking for other things to do. And he'd be an excellent person to bring in for educational, programs. But we might find somebody who wants to use it occasionally to make things also. I mean, not just demonstrations.
Okay. Are we ready to make a
Well,
motion?
just a second. I just want to make sure I heard this right. You have had some input from the Simsbury Fire Department?
Yes.
Okay. And then
Yeah,
also...
they basically, some years ago, we did an outdoor exhibit with, live fire. Some of the people who do this, like the one in Essex, he didn't have a real forge. He had a propane tank and a little modern forge, rather than coal on an open metal, heavy, old-fashioned forge. So we have 2 forges we already have. One is about this big, wide, it sits on legs, heavy, very heavy. And the other is a smaller, almost like a Weber grill size, that can be easily moved, so you could do something outside, when it's hot. And we're gonna have enough, they have bellows and different system with a crank to generate the air that you need to fuel the fire underneath the forge. Then you have the pipe up through the ceiling that has to meet code for how high it is above the peak. And the tallest part of this building is 15 feet high at the peak. The walls are more like 8-footers. So, but the fire department that time said you have to be 20 feet from any building if you're doing an outdoor demonstration.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to add that the society will pull a building permit. And I know
Yes.
they've been in discussions with both Patrick from the fire district and Henry from the building department.
So the proximity, my other question was, proximity to the septic system. Did you get some input from somebody on that too, that said it was okay? Like the health district?
The next step, we're gonna get the permit from the health department, but we're not gonna go with the possibility of getting rejected. We know it'll be approved because we've already pulled the maps and measured with long tapes from one building to where it is. So we know that the requirement is a 10-foot distance. If you have, unless it's sitting on piers, which was another option for the design, but not as good a design. So 10 feet is all you need to be away, and it will be released. We discovered also a drainage pipe in the area that we have to avoid, but they're much lower down. Below the
Sounds like
surface.
you're ready to go to me.
Okay, are we ready to make a motion here?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just again report out, this did go to your design review, the design review board, and they went this evening, and they forward a positive recommendation to you.
Good. Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll do this. Oh, you got it?
Okay.
All right, I'll do this one. I figure we can maybe all take one tonight. Okay, so I would like to move that the Town of Simsbury Zoning Commission approves application ZC number 23-30 of Simsbury Historical Society, owner Robert Moody, applicant for a site plan amendment pursuant to section 11 for a plus or minus 360 square foot blacksmith shop at 800 Hop Meadow Street. Assessors map G10, block 227, lot 001, zone SC-1, based on the following findings. A, recommendations from appropriate local, regional, state, and federal departments, agencies, and organizations. This application was not referred to any outside entities. The building department division staff will review the required building permit information once submitted. B, compliance with all applicable. So I guess these are all just the things that we review to ensure.
You're technically,
You don't have
not to
to.
wear everybody out, I think you can reference the conditions found in the draft motions dated this date.
Okay.
Shown on the screen. I mean, I really.
You don't want me to read every single one?
You may.
Quite all right. So we'll say based on the findings documented in, or outlined in the document provided to us. It's not got a date on it.
Draft
So
motions, July 17th.
there we go. Draft motions July 17th. Thank you very much. And is subject to the following conditions. The project shall be developed in substantial conformance to the site plan titled Preliminary Design, Master Plan for 800 Hop Meadow Street, Simsbury, Connecticut, dated October 26, 2018. And also an administrative zoning permit is required prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Second by Bruce. Any further discussion? Anybody here actually go to a blacksmith shop? Yeah?
I grew up in a blacksmith shop.
Oh, good.
Well, we're going to need to know that story at some point. Not tonight,
Well,
but
after the
sometime.
meeting.
Yes.
You can give
After
us
the-
some input.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it carries 5-0. Tony, you can come back wherever you are.
That's right. You left the room.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's going.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have a different order than we've had in the past. We're going to consider the public hearings one at a time. And then if we close the public hearing, we may take action on them before we go to the next public hearing. Which I think is more, should have done it a long time ago, I guess.
We did used to do it like that a long time ago.
Pardon?
We did used to do
Oh,
it
did we?
like that a long time ago,
I
yeah.
don't remember that. Okay,
Mr. Chairman?
first, yes,
Can I ask, and you may have announced this before I got here, but does the audience know that 1263 is postponed?
sorry, what?
Does the audience already know that the Chipotle application has been continued?
No, I didn't know that either.
You still have to make a motion to continue it.
Yes.
Got it, okay.
So, and if they're here, you can entertain public comment if you wanted to. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the first order of business is the public hearing on application ZC 2318 of Dorset Crossing LLC. Owner, David Ziyax, applicant for a modification to the Dorset Crossing Pad Master Plan and zone change to modify lots A, F, and H pursuant to Section 8 of the Simsbury zoning regulations at 30 Dorset Crossing, Assessors Map 104, Block 403, Lot 013-A.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just add for the record, the Hartford Current's affidavit for public notice ran on consecutively to July 6th and July 13th.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Unfortunately, David Ziak, well, I am Dr. Anthony Giorgio, the managing director of Keystone Companies. Unfortunately, David Ziak, who was scheduled to be here, had it on his calendar, but he failed to inform his wife, who had arranged for them to go on vacation. So you're going to have to get stuck with the B team tonight, trying to present what we're trying to do. Actually, may I take a minute to talk about a little bit of the history? In the days of COVID, we did a Zoom meeting about 18 months ago where I discussed with many of you who were on the commission at the time that the world had changed. When we got Dorset Crossing approved as a pad back in 2010 or 11, we envisioned having a number of medical office buildings, residential, and retail. And we were successful in moving forward with the initial building and with 168 market rate apartments. And then we were fortunate enough to put up 48 affordable units for people with MS and similar other illnesses. And then the world changed, and we've been there for some time. And when I chatted with you back in January, a year or so ago, I indicated to you that we were facing the reality that the opportunity to develop any additional commercial office was probably nil. The vacancy factors in Simsbury were close to 30%. The opportunity to develop multifamily seemed to be more real. Vacancies were in the 3 to 5% range. And I indicated to you that we wanted to consider switching out some of the commercial medical office with additional multifamily. In order to do that, we had to subdivide Lot A and create a new lot called Lot H, which we successfully did through planning. And we have now taken some time to look at Lot H, and we have an application before you this evening, which is intended to add approximately 72 units of multifamily to Lot H. Georgia, do you have a thing that can share? Right. Lot H is the one we're chatting about this evening. Lot A has been reconfigured to subdivide Lot H. Lot F, which is the light blue color, will remain retail. And Lot A, with the 15,000 square foot office building, will continue to be medical, but we'd like to introduce an opportunity for some retail at the same time. However, in Lot H, we've looked at this very carefully, and we've come up with a proposal to build 72 multifamily units. It will consist of 3 buildings with approximately 24 units in each one. As you can see, it's been spaced out in a way that allows for ample open space for some recreational area. We think it conforms very nicely with the scale of the parcel as well as with the rest of the development. And we are proposing at this point in time to commit 10% of the new 72 units to affordable units. We believe that given the fact that the pad is a zone unto itself, that we can at this time commit to making sure that 10% of those new units will comply with the income requirements of the state of Connecticut with regard to 60% and 80% of income level. I do not have a developer for this site, but it is our intention, with your approval, that we will market the opportunity for future developers, and they will know full well that as part of any site plan that they submit, they need to demonstrate that 10% of these new units will be deed restricted to affordability. We think that that's a way to begin to build into traditional development, affordable opportunities, without necessarily having to take the hammer of the state and 8-30G to make that happen. I am committed as a developer to do everything we can to increase the number of affordable units in Simsbury. I think we've already demonstrated that with the Ajakian Commons, where everyone who lives in Ajakian Commons is at the 66% level of income. So that I can only do so much, but I would like you to consider this as an opportunity for us to take one small step to increase the number of affordable units in the town. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have or the public might have at this point.
Commissioners, alternates may speak.
Why? Whatever gave you the idea, I want to ask some questions on this. Good evening, thank you so much for being here. And I'm really happy to hear you say that you were interested in doing everything you can to help increase affordable units in Simsbury. That's something I have an interest in myself. And I was taking a look at the numbers in your proposal that the 72 units have 10%. And I was also looking at the 830G statute and realizing that, to be 830G moratorium point eligible, for us, it would be best if we did have a set-aside development in terms of maximizing points towards moratoriums and towards achieving our affordable housing goals. Have you taken a look into any of the recent funding streams that have been made available by the state specifically for affordable housing developments, and specifically for developments that will include that 30%? Because right now, you already have the 48 units at Ajakian Commons that are affordable. You're already offering to add another 7 units, will bring it to 55. And by my numbers, under the proposed 72 that you have, plus the Ajakian Commons, plus the, I think it's 260 units you have in the rest of Dorset Crossing, we would only need something like an additional 60 units in order to achieve an entirely, set-aside development qualifying project. And that would obviously have great 830G affordable housing goal benefits. Are you familiar with, some of this stuff is really, really new from the legislature just this year. Are you familiar with any of the new funding streams or opportunities that can make these kinds of developments equally profitable for developers right now?
Commissioner Osborne, I've looked at those, and the practicality is that with 72 units, to put aside 30% as affordable under 8-30G criteria makes it economically unviable.
Even with the new funding streams?
Yes, even with the new funding sources. And here's the difficulty. May I be candid with you?
Yes, please.
I think the legislature needs to be commended, and the state of Connecticut needs to be commended in everything they're trying to do to increase the accessibility for people at all walks of life into affordable units. I think we need to do that. As a society, we need to do that. The economics of these things, unfortunately, don't work in a practical sense. If I put forth this project as an 8-30G with 72 units, that piece of land would never be developed with all of the appropriate financing in place. Now, if somebody comes along and says to this commission, we want to do 125 units on this piece of land, and we're willing to commit 30%, then maybe the numbers work. I've been in this business for 40 years, and I believe that every piece of land has a natural capacity, and anything beyond 72 units is going to make that a crowded site. Now, we wrestled as an organization. Do we come into the commission with an 8-30G application and put up 125 units, whatever the number is, all right? I have an 8-acre site in Avon that I'm looking at as an 8-30G. That has right now a perfect capacity of 42 townhomes and 13 single-family homes. And that's the application that I'm contemplating putting in. This is half the site. But I have people coming to me saying, we want to put 150 units on these 8 acres and we'll do 8-30G.
Does it become any more viable if you take the affordability, designate the affordable units as in the existing buildings and make all 72 market rate?
I don't know whether I can convert 168 or a component of the 168 into affordable because I don't own them. And the 72 in the back that you approved, I don't own. The only thing I own is this. And I know that when Ken Regan approached me years ago with the Ojakian Commons, he said to me, I can only do this deal if you sell me the land at 2/3 the value, which I did. And you have Ojakian Commons. And I'm not sure, to be honest with you, whether I can add the 48 to this next 8 and come up with a number. Your planner has suggested to me that I can't combine all these numbers because they're under different ownership, and I respect his expertise. But the reality is this. We think 72 units make sense. We're prepared to make a commitment for 10% of those units or 8 of those units to be deed restricted for whomever develops them based upon the 60 and 80% criteria. I really can't do much more than that. And I think I'm probably doing more than any other developer that has come in and has made a commitment before any site plan activities to say, we're going to put a stake in the ground and give you 10% of those units. I hope that answers your question, but I don't have any other comments on that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Hooker?
Sir, thank you for coming in. I appreciate it. I have a question about how you reached the 10% as your number of what was economically feasible. Like, what was the calculus that went into that? Because I asked because 10%, well, that's certainly better than nothing. We're trying to, as a town, achieve 10%, and that if we only add 10% affordability to every single development for the rest of time, the numbers, just the way the math works, makes it very difficult to ever achieve our moratorium. So the reason I'm asking is, like, why? What makes 10% that magic number? Can you go into that a little bit?
Well, to be quite honest with you, when I first thought about this, I wasn't prepared to make any kind of a commitment because I didn't think I could come up with any way that 8-30G would work. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But I thought about it, and frankly, I've had some calls from people in town who are currently living in market rate apartments.
Mm-hmm.
And they've said, we're up against it. We can't continue to face these increasing rates on the market.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to consider affordability? I had conversations with the staff, and they said, see what you can do. So we did the math, and I honestly believe that by sequestering 8 units, a developer can come in and make this work economically. There's nothing magical about 10%, except that I thought it was a reasonable effort. Now, it's a small project. I can't solve your 10% need for the moratorium at Dorset Crossing. I really can't. I think there's opportunities in this community where there are larger pieces of land where you can get a lot closer to that 10% moratorium than I can get you here. I'm just trying to add something that the community needs. It may not help the statutory requirement that you're racing toward, but it will help 8 individuals or 8 families who can't now find a new apartment in a great location that is affordable. There's no magic here. There's no, I don't have a hat. I can't pull it out. But I can tell you that I'm doing it more from a societal perspective, and I know the numbers will work for anyone who comes in and wants to do a quality project of 72 units, dedicating 8 of them to affordability.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Tony?
Excuse me, you mentioned that you don't have a developer yet, is that correct?
I have a number of individuals, some local and some regional, that have expressed an interest in this site. But I can't market it without having it approved. But I have said to them, once I submitted the application, that if they're serious about coming in, they're going to have to build a project with 10% of the units committed to affordability.
Okay, so I think you answered my question, which was how confident are you that you're going to be able to get a developer to agree to the commitment you just made to the commission?
I'm reasonably confident, but in this business, it's not a deal until the check clears. So as I said before, I've been in this business a long time. And I only know one way to do business, and that's to be open and honest. You walk into my conference room and we can put a deal together and we can both shake hands and walk out feeling we did a good deal and it's been a good day. And that's what I did with Ken Reagan back in 2010. There are individuals out there who I think will share my same concern about adding to the stock. And I am reasonably confident that I will find someone that will do this.
Okay, thank you.
Well, if you don't, you know where we are. I think we'll hear from you again. You're not going to let go of this.
I don't know how many more changes I can make, Bruce. I'm running out of energy.
Well, let me see if there's a little more stretch there. I'm in favor of the 10%, and I understand the explanation for it, but what I'm concerned about is we've already run into this with another development, that there's a certain reluctance at some point to, at something like, in this case, you're looking for the essentially a retrenching on the notion of the mixed use, that you're asking for moving back on the mixed use by various terms, a significant amount, so that you can get the 72 units. And I get that. But what I'm concerned about is if the 72 units, or if we look at it as 10%, is it 8, is it 7? I thought there was an earlier comment in another meeting where the 7.2%. If it's 72 units, 10%, 7.2.
I know, but I don't know how to do 0.2 of a unit.
Right, exactly. And
So I'm giving you the
in our
benefit of the
discussion-
doubt. I'm rounding up. I could have rounded
Thank you.
down and said
I just
7.
want to be clear.
I
Thank
would
you.
recommend rounding up.
Because what I want to see is a framework that ensures that both segments, the market rate and the affordable, are built. And so what I'm looking for is the notion of a commitment to a relationship in the approval of the COs. So that if you get one CO approved for an affordable, that would, in my mind, qualify 8 market rate COs to be approved. So every time you get one, you get 8 of the other. One and then 8 of the other.
Commissioner Elliott, my sense is that whoever comes in is going to build 72 units at the same time. And they're going to designate the 8 units throughout the 3 buildings that will be deed restricted. Now, you've got 3 buildings, you have 24 units in each building. There's going to have to be, and the units have to be comparable. You can't call it an affordable unit and then put in, plastic counters. I mean, the units have to be comparable. Mm-hmm. And that's the challenge from a developer point of view. You have to designate them as affordable, and you have to build them so they're comparable, so that someone walking in says, oh, I got one of the cheap units. It doesn't work that way. Whatever you have in the 72 units, you also have to have inclusive within the 8 affordable units. There's no market distinction except under the deed for those approvals, which will be issued, I'm sure, at CO for unit X, Y, or Z, it will clearly state for the next 30-plus years that these will always be affordable as per the rate. So there's not a question of, well, I'll do one building and I'll give you an affordable unit, and then I'll do the other two buildings and I won't give you one. It doesn't work that way. This approval, should you decide to grant it, will make it very clear that 8 out of 72 units distributed among those 3 buildings must be identified as affordable, with half of them at 60% and half of them at 80% of income level. And that'll all be in your approval.
I got that part. What I'm interested in is securing the ratio and the relationship that if circumstances change, if the developer's inclination changes, if something changes that we can't even foresee, and there's a decision that the thing needs to be scaled back, then we want to be sure that a proportionate number of those affordable units are there. Now, when it's all said and done, there should be 64 market rate and 8 affordable. That's a perfect world. And completed, more or less in some sequence. Again, it's a matter of what we know from our experience and our unfortunate experience, that once we give up the leverage to hold the COs, we don't have any control over whether those units ever get built.
And
that's our experience. It's painful. It's
I
very painful
appreciate your
lesson.
comment, and I realize that I'm asking you to modify the uses. I'm not asking for any different uses. I'm asking you to modify the ratio. But I'm also committing to you that anybody who comes, this is going to be in the approval of the pad. This is not going to be left to site plan approval. That was one of the things that your planner and we talked about. We're doing this now. We're making the 10% commitment now so that it's memorialized. No one can come in and develop that project without knowing upfront that 10% of those units, or 8 rounded up, will have to be affordable. I don't expect someone to come in and say, well, you know what? We've looked at this and we're only going to do 62 units. Well, guess what? 10% of those 62 units are still going to have to be affordable because that's the way the approval is going to be.
That's a wonderful scenario. I get it. What I'm concerned about is that we don't want 64 units of market rate units built, and then we'll deal with the question of the affordable.
You can't.
We don't want that.
You can't.
We want to make sure that it doesn't happen to us.
You can't. I'm obviously not making myself clear.
I think
Well, I think our motion here needs to say that they're distributed equally among the 3 projects or 3 units.
You can say that.
Of course you can.
That's where you're headed. But
I think Bruce's point is, you build 2 buildings, and then the third one, you say, okay, we're going to put the
The
affordable
units
units
over
in the
there.
last part of the
So
other.
we drafted a commission, if it's the will of the condition, if it's the will of the commission, that requires an affordability plan be submitted, consistent with 830G statutes. The 830G statutes require an equivalency of ratio to be demonstrated in the affordability plan and demonstrated in the build-out. But you can add that language to put the finest point on it, of course.
I don't have a problem with that. And
Okay.
perhaps I wasn't understanding what you were saying.
Right. You gave a very thorough description of what you proposed, but I think,
That's okay.
if the
Tony, can I just comment on that?
Sure. This is Tom Fahey, my attorney.
In response to Mr. Elliott's question, Commissioner Elliott's question, really the answer is in the affordability plan, and it's really an enforcement issue. And the way it's been handled in other towns is you have to designate in the 3 buildings, you have to spread them out, you have to designate them on the plan. And so if you issue, 78 units out of 72, so, okay, after you issue the building permits, you can't get to the 9th one unless you have an affordable, unless you have that CO issued for the affordable one.
but you can build 8 before you do
Well,
even 1.
okay, so if you build 7, because the 8th one's got to be affordable.
So if you're saying, could someone build 7 units and then build, yeah, you could. But then, what's he gonna do? Then stop building them? I mean, are you saying, if you're talking about a situation where the developer goes under, doesn't build anymore, is that what you're referring to, or?
Oh, they don't need to go under. They can just say, oh, the world's changed. You know, I don't have the money I used to have, or the market's changed, or whatever. But I don't want to do it.
Well, if they said that, I don't think this commission is gonna waive that requirement.
But it's too late, the buildings are built.
It's too late.
Well, yeah, but nobody, you can't get past that unless you put, what I'm trying to say is.
The buildings cannot get built
Yeah.
without 8 of those units throughout the 3 buildings designated as affordable. They cannot get built without that. There's no way in hell they can. They're not gonna build 2 at a time. They're gonna build 24 units in each building, and the proportionate number of affordable units in each building will be designated and part of the submission of the affordability plan. There's no way around that. No way.
If you build, say you build the first building with 24 units, which is, I think, the way this might get done, they'll either build all of them at the same time, or they'll build them building by building. So the first building is built, and there's 24 COs, okay, then the proportionate amount of affordable have to be given in that building. And that's an enforcement because they're going to be issued by your zoning enforcement officer. And as George indicated, the affordability plan is a detailed document which kind of illustrates all this. It's a recipe that the zoning enforcement has to follow. And then the second building, the same thing. If it's going to be, you generally don't build a building and only issue COs one at a time. And neither does for apartments, the developer doesn't want that anyway. He wants to, they're starting their leasing ahead of time. So, but, and so they need all of these building permits, especially with this market now. They're more than likely going to build all of them at the same time. And when they get CO'd, you're going to have those 8 units identified in 3 different buildings. And they're going to be there, okay?
We may have a problem, because if there's 8 affordable units, and there's 3 buildings, 2 2/3 in each building has to be affordable.
We can do 3, 3, and then 2.
Right.
Yeah, and I think.
We'd like to round up on the first couple.
I think that's what's going to happen. But what I'm trying to say is, we're prepared to make sure that in your approval, anyone who comes in to develop these 72 units must build a minimum of 8 units that are designated as affordable. I don't know what else I can say. We're not going to build them one at a time. We're not talking about single-family houses. You're going to build a building, and there's going to be 3 affordable in the first, and 3 in the second, and 2 in the third. And that's the way it's going to be.
It would be a great thing if we had a plan in front of us, but we don't. You know.
If you just add that to the motion, I think that would clarify things.
Thank you, Donna.
Mr. Chair.
That's what I said before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, words to
So-
that effect.
I fully support the concept that Bruce is trying to get at here, but when we're drafting it, I want to be really careful, because when you have deed-restricted units in a rental as opposed to a for sale, what happens is that somebody who qualifies moves in, and then the next year, they've done better economically, and now they've incomed out of that unit. And so oftentimes an affordable housing plan will have something, a concept called like the next available unit. So the person doesn't have to move out, they can stay and start paying market rate, but the next available comparable unit that becomes available then has to become affordable for that to continue to work, so that that project doesn't fall into non-compliance.
Right.
So I want to make sure that while we're saying under this pad, we have to have them in, 332 initially, I want to make sure that it's not worded so that the owner, the landlord can't use that next available unit concept in their affordable housing plan for if somebody, incomes out in the first building and the next available unit is in another building, that they'd be able to take that next available unit and keep in compliance, regardless of what building it's in. So the initial one should be 332, but there should be the freedom on the part of the landlord later on to be able to use that next available unit concept to stay in compliance.
This may be helpful. Think about how the process is going to work. This is a pad, so it's still conceptual. And we recommended a condition that says they submit an affordability plan prior and or during the site plan process. So the commission is going to review a site plan that shows buildings and units in kind of the final step. So at that time, we will, you'll have the specifics of the affordability plan during that review process. And I don't know if that's helpful, but we don't have an affordability plan to review today for those details, but
The question is,
down the road, you will.
when you have a rental building with 24 apartments in it, is there one CO for the building?
Yeah, so that each building will be CO.
Not apartment by apartment.
Oh, okay.
No,
So
not
that
by
the-
apartment, building.
So the deed for that building has said that 3 of these units must be affordable, and the owner can move them around.
But
Well,
within
the devil is in those details, and that'll be part of the plan when we're
Right,
reviewing.
and so this commission will have to, when that affordable housing plan comes in, it's distinctly possible that 3 or 4 people who are here today will not be on this commission. So I guess it would fall to staff to make sure that that's still in the back of your mind when that affordable housing plan comes in, that we not hamper a landlord's capacity to move them around so people would stay in their apartments and not have to move as they move up the economic ladder and still maintain compliance with the affordable plan.
Remember what I said earlier. To the naked eye, there's not going to be any difference in these
Right,
apartments.
that's why you can do the next available.
That's right. So if I'm in an affordable unit and my income changes and I no longer qualify, but the owner knows he has to have an affordable unit to replace the one I'm in, then the next unit that's opened up is going to be the affordable unit. And you're not going to see any difference. That's the good news about this. The devil is going to be in the details, but I think we can come up with, whomever decides to end up buying this, they'll have to come up with an affordability plan that passes staff review and satisfies your expectation, regardless of who's on the commission.
Yeah, and we're not the enforcement
Right.
agency.
I don't want to hamper a future landlord's capacity to do that by our well-intentioned language about the path. That's all.
Okay. Any further
Yeah, I do have a
comments?
question for Mr. McGregor. What's the approval process for the full affordability plan?
So we have asked in this process for the applicant to submit an affordability prior to the site plan. So staff would review that would review that affordability plan and review it with the town attorney.
Okay, yeah,
I mean, it would be a staff activity.
right, and that's subject to not being approved.
Yeah, I mean, if staff identifies something that's outstanding or is not satisfactory, we wouldn't. And perhaps we would return with the applicant to have that discussion with you.
Okay, correct. I think that addresses the concern that some of the commissioners are having about how we enforce this. I mean, it would be enforced at that level right there. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, oh, I'm sorry.
Any more questions?
I had a question mark at the end of it.
I did have a quick question.
Sure.
Sort of switching gears a little bit, because if I understand correctly, we're not just talking about H, but we're also talking about A and adjusting I think that's also in this,
Yeah,
in this request, the usage.
All I'm asking is, in the medical office building now, which is 25% occupied, I've had inquiries to do what's more like a retail activity, and I'm stymied because it isn't permitted.
Right.
There's no demand for medical space, and I would like to have the ability to do that. And I think candidly, as we add the 72 units that have already been approved
gonna be more
in the
need.
back, and another 72 units, the opportunity for retail activity will increase.
Okay, I mean, that's my question, because our second favorite subject, besides affordable housing, is mixed use, and we seem to constantly just get more retail and less or more housing and less retail. So I would just, ask for a commitment for that.
I understand that. I'm asking for that opportunity.
Right. So that's great. Yeah. I thought we were talking about that as well. I just wanted
Yes,
to make
yes.
sure. So.
I wasn't sure when I read the staff remarks, but I did go through it again, and the numbers add up. So we're adding retail to that, and I appreciate that, but that's what we're trying to do.
Okay.
Listen, it doesn't do any of us any good to have empty land and empty buildings. I mean, it's one thing to be concerned about making sure we meet all of our societal needs, but it's another thing to make sure that you have rateable properties that meet the grand list or add to the grand list. So I've been in this business a long time. I've always been able to work with a commission. I'm trying to do that here.
Yep. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
More questions? Ann?
No. Thank you for trying to work with us and addressing both these major issues that we have been faced with over the past few months.
Thank you.
Somebody want to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, it's a public hearing.
What?
It's a public hearing.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. It's time to close the public hearing.
No, you need to ask.
Yes, it's a public hearing. I need to hear from them, if there's anyone to speak.
All right, let's start over again. Does anyone in the public care to speak to this application? Sorry. I'm jumping the gun. Okay,
Yes, sir.
I hear none. Somebody want to make a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Second by Ann. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the public hearing is closed, 6-0. Now, further discussion on the application. I think he's made a fairly cogent description of the situation. I think that the situation economically in the market is something that's happened over 10 years. It's not a 6-month thing. And I think we have to recognize that after COVID, office space is almost worthless, I guess, in a lot of areas. So I'm sympathetic with the arguments. You guys have an opinion?
Well, let me just point out that I think, we've said to other applicants on other nights, we have a strong tendency to expect a deal's a deal. When we approve something, it could, have, the timelines could be extended, the world could change. And then there's this, request for a review and a change to the deal we made. And we're not comfortable with that. And so when I see the request, which is, an underlying element to this one and a key one, to back up from the commercial development space to do more residential, I'm uneasy with that. But this is a situation where there's a significant opportunity. It's small scale, but to get some more affordable housing units in Simsbury as part of this deal. And so I felt badly when the regulation was created that would enable a PAD in Simsbury, that there was no definition of how much of each of these elements in mixed use needed to be there. Other towns have specific percentage requirements. Sometimes they're a range, but they're there. We have zero guidance. What's enough commercial development? Our regulations don't call for, they don't provide it. It's in the eye of the beholder. So if we think this still leaves adequate commercial in the Dorset Crossing development area, then it's adequate. We need 4 votes. If 4 people think it's adequate, it's adequate. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. If we think 4 people think that's it, even though there's no guidance to specific numbers, we're going back from a much more significant commitment to, and for good reason, the market's slow. is it likely it's never going to come back? Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I think we have the latitude to make the judgment that this is an acceptable resulting ratio of residential to commercial development, even though it's not what was planned or not what was envisioned. If it's our opinion that it's adequate, it's adequate. And so I say let's move forward and make the motion. Get the deal done, It's over.
Yes?
Comments?
No, I've been sitting here now for over time, and this gentleman is not the only developer, who's making the remarks about that there just is no market for retail. And after hearing it often enough from enough people, I have to appreciate that and understand that even if they made him a commitment, times have changed, and I think we need to look at that fairly as well.
Thank you. Donna?
I think we've discussed everything, just as long as we can get that, and I think we have it in our conditions, the commitment, that it's only approved with that 10%.
Right. Tony?
I have nothing else to add.
Diane?
I would agree with Donna. I mean, I think, again, we have two priorities. We have affordable housing and we have additional retail. And it sounds like, he's going to make a commitment to the affordable housing, which is certainly something that we're very interested in. And he's also making a commitment to working on getting that retail, and it sounds like he's got some promising leads. So I feel pretty comfortable with that.
Okay.
Let me just add one other thing. In the case of this application, we have, in the total development down there, those 48 units that are in the Ojakian complex, that represents a commitment to affordable housing that's unmatched anywhere else in Simsbury and by itself. And now the developers here offering to enlarge that, and I think it deserves our support.
Someone will make a motion.
Well, I'll make the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
So I move that the zoning commission approve ZC 23-18 for 30 Dorset Crossing, an application for a modification to the Dorset Crossing PAD master plan, Assessor's Map 104, Block 403, Lot 013A. Zone PAD, subject to the following findings and conditions. Findings. The proposed PAD amendment substantially meets the review factors and criteria set forth in Section 8 of the zoning regulations, that the applicant's submission has substantially established consistency with the findings for PAD approval, also found in Section 8 of the zoning regulations. Under conditions, Item 1, the project shall be developed in substantial conformance with the master development plan dated 12/3/21, revised 4/25/23, prepared by F.A. Hesketh and Associates. Condition 2, the applicant shall submit 2 sets of Mylars and 1 paper set for signature and recordation. Item 3, the project shall provide a minimum of 10% of the total units in Lot H as affordable units consistent with the Section 8-30G of the state statutes. A full affordability plan consistent with state statutes shall be submitted for review no later than the time of submission of a site plan application for any development in Lot H. Final Mylar publication and paper copy of the plan set shall reflect this commitment in the zoning tabulation, master plan, development data for Lot H. End of motion.
I'll second.
Second by Diane. More discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 6-0. Thank you very much. Okay, the next public hearing, we should open the public hearing and then, or should we not?
So it's open already. So,
it is.
so ZC 2324, project identified is the redevelopment at 1263 Hot Meadow, the former Wagner Ford property. We received a request from the applicant yesterday, or the day before, now then Wednesday, requesting you continue the hearing again to your September 6th regular meeting and provided the requisite extension to the timeline. And the reason for that is one of the primary issues that came up was the question of access into the site, whether staff was asking for right in, right out. They were concerned. The applicant is reviewing that, whether they can do it from an engineering standpoint, and they've taken that issue back to their two tenants to have those discussions. That is the reason the applicant is asking for the continuation. There may be residents here tonight who would like to speak on it, and that would be up to the chair to ask whether you wanted to entertain that tonight or to simply continue the whole hearing to the 6th.
Okay. What do we think?
I think if there's people here, we should.
Yeah, is there someone here who wants to speak to this public hearing?
Oh, there's
Who'd like to?
Yeah.
Okay, name
I am Lori Boyko from 15 Oakhurst Road, and the only reason I'm speaking right now, I'd really rather hear what the developer has to say or what they might change, but I'm just speaking right now to ask if you could please keep the public hearing open in case people want to speak at that time. That's it.
Okay, you want to come up here?
Maybe.
Yeah, and staff would recommend keeping it open as well.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak? Let's have a motion to continue the public hearing. Anybody want to make that motion?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Ann?
Second?
Second by Tony. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carry
That
6.
would be a regular meeting in September, first meeting in
September.
September 6th. Yep.
Okay. The next application is ZC 23-26 of Raising Cane's Restaurant LLC. Owner, TJ Donahue is the applicant for a special exception in a site plan pursuant to section 4 for the construction of a plus or minus 3,284 square foot restaurant at 530 Bushy Hill Road, Assessor's Map B20, Block 508, Lot 001-B, in Zone B3.
While the applicant's coming up, Mr. Chairman, again, for the record, this item is a public hearing, and it was legally advertised in the Hartford Current consecutive weeks, July 6th and July 13th, and make that part of the record.
Okay. Mr. Donahue.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, we represent Raising Cane's Restaurant. With us tonight is Michelle Robinson, the owner's representative, and Jeff Board of Bowler Engineering. This application received a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals for a minor sideline allowance. It's gotten a nice review from the Design Review Board, and it's before you is a extensive and comprehensive staff report, including comments from the town engineer of some length. I have Jeff Board here from Bowler Associates, who's the engineer on the project, who will go through that with you. And we'd be very happy just to be interactive with your questions about the staff report if you wish.
Okay.
Thank you, TJ. For the record, my name is Jeff Board, professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with Bowler Engineering, located at 65 LaSalle Road in West Hartford, Connecticut. Did want to share with you on the screen right now is just an existing conditions aerial of the 530 Bushy Hill Road site. The red area is our leased parcel, and the larger black line, if you scroll up to the top even, there's a much larger portion of the site that totals roughly 18 acres, of which the red leased area is about 1.21 acres. To the south is West Main Street or Route 44. To the west is Bushy Hill Road. Adjacent to us to the east is a couple of financial institutes, and then to the west by a commercial area. So right now it's important to note that the area in question that's shown in red is basically all impervious surface. There's 81 parking spaces there currently with untreated stormwater flow that goes to a catch basin on the northwest corner. Again, north is to the top of the page. So right now, all of that water goes untreated to a catch basin and exits out to the east. What's also very difficult to see on here, do you have a pointer, George?
I do have a pointer.
That would be great.
Thank you very much.
So there's a light gray line that traverses right here that is the town line. So essentially the majority of our development, which I'll get into momentarily, is within the town of Simsbury, and there's a small portion of the drive aisle in this bottom right-hand corner that is within Avon. You can kind of see it a little bit better here. But that's existing conditions, relatively flat. There is a very large buffer, as you could tell, from West Main Street back to this curb line. And it's important to note, as part of that, there's like a 5 or 6 foot existing berm that's in this location right now, which we're maintaining and also supplementing with additional screening, which I'll show you in a moment. And then part of what TJ had mentioned was a side yard variance for a canopy. It was like 3 or 4 feet that we had to request, and we're also supplementing this area on the side with additional landscaping as well. So with that, we can go to the next exhibit, so basically what you're seeing here is that area that was highlighted in red, the financial institutes to the east there. As you can tell, we do have a 3,300 square foot approximate restaurant, standalone Raising Cane's with an outdoor patio area. There's 83 total seats, and the site does have counterclockwise circulation. So as you can see, cars would come down the street here, enter the site, traverse, and then exit the drive-through in this location. There had been some comments from the fire marshal that we received regarding the truck circulation and this turning maneuver coming in here. We have, on the next slide, run a truck through the site, and it's the larger of the Simsbury fire truck vehicles, and that does make this turn very easily. We also, it's important to note, match the existing curb line here. So the curb line that's there on this proposed drawing is the curb line that's out there today and has been out there for the last 40, 50 years from this development. So it's important to note there are also 3 other entrances in addition to the entrance that comes out to the light here. There's a main entrance here, and there's another one up in this location. So there's multiple ways to get in and out of the site, and the one that was of concern actually works with the truck maneuvers that we ran. It's also important to note the drive aisle shift here. If we were to do something to accommodate that, our lease line is right about here, and if we were to shift the driveway south a good 50, 60 feet, that would create this like 120-foot expanse of asphalt, which from a vehicular standpoint can become a free-for-all. And then there'd be extensive modifications to the north outside of our lease line, which we're not under ownership of. So again, we have that turning template I could show you momentarily. The dumpster is located right to the northeast corner of the building here. And then again, we had circulated a truck throughout, so there are islands that are painted in here to provide that fire truck circulation throughout the site.
Sorry, but when you said you did that, did you do that in conjunction with the Simsbury Fire Department?
Correct.
Or you did? Okay,
Correct.
great.
And that was part of, we took their design vehicle and ran it through our software, and that was one of the more recent comments we received. So we just verified that it does in fact work, which I'm assuming back when they got this originally approved, somebody had done a similar exercise, and that truck makes that turn no problem.
But what does that mean? The fire marshal in his letter of July 12th, he's mistaken. And does he know that?
Is he, say that again? I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry.
July 12th letter that we
Yep.
got from the fire marshal, he's mistaken.
Yeah, so if you go to the next page, I'll jump
Does he
back to
know
this
that?
in a minute. We have not had conversations with him since, so we had basically done, if you go to the next slide, I think we had prepared so this is just the turning template that takes, and we do this as part of our design process early on, so we had already addressed this, but it's got their design truck, and it shows it making the maneuvers in the site, and then it shows it making this maneuver around the corner, which again is how it currently is today. We have a little bit of room if we needed to feather this to accommodate anything from him. However, currently as proposed, it works just fine. So that is something we plan on submitting this to the fire marshal.
doesn't agree with you.
Understood.
Okay.
Do you need those 12 parking spaces?
Yes.
So you can't lose one?
One maybe, but again, it would provide no benefit into what we're doing. And then again, from an ownership standpoint, our lease line comes out right here. I don't know if TJ wants to speak to that a bit more, but our lease line ends right about here. So anything we do to move this south creates a situation where we end up having to amend to the north here.
Right, I was just wondering whether there was some flexibility with your number
he has
of
not
spaces.
He has not seen this exhibit, so we plan on sharing this with him so that he can review.
We didn't get his letter until Friday. His letter is, we're not direct.
We didn't get it till a few hours ago.
Well, we're trying to be responsive. We ran all the
Hey.
programs again.
I'm just trying to understand if the fire marshal is aware that the determination by your client is that he's mistaken, and he's not.
Well, the fire marshal isn't necessarily wrong. He said that it's not the maximum, most safest turn you could possibly have. I mean, he's making a relative comment. He's not making an engineering comment as to whether it works or doesn't. Our responsibility is to
He who, your client or the
Oh,
fire
the fire
marshal?
marshal. He said it's not the safest possible movement. We ran your requirements. We ran your engineering requirements, and it meets them.
But has he seen them?
No, we just got.
Okay, but that's, I think that's what Bruce is asking.
I think it's
Right,
important to note, again, he's seen this plan. What we added here was this turning maneuver here. He saw, basically, they had asked us to run it in this direction here. And then that's when he had asked us if we could soften this up to do that. And basically, this exhibit shows that, again, currently, it's important to note, what's out there now and what's been out there for these number of years since the shopping center was put in place is the same turning maneuver that we're proposing here.
Yes, but it's a gosh awful corner. It's not great.
Right, it's a terrible turn to begin.
It's a horrible turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I know our hands are tied in the sense that right here is outside of our lease area. So if, on that existing conditions exhibit, our lease area kind of rides the back of the existing curb and then comes straight across the drive aisle. So any modifications that would need to be made up here, we're not able to accommodate.
So that would have
Well,
to
we
be at
can't
the
either.
will of the owner of the entire development of Simsbury Commons.
That is correct.
Yeah, in the letter that he sent us, there's like a little visual where I think he's proposing he'd like, but that would cut right through those parking spaces.
That basically comes down in this direction, correct?
Exactly.
And then the tricky part with that is then it does create this like 120 foot expanse in this location. So
Right.
that's not ideal for cars to not have that means or have
Well,
a-
not if you took that corner and just blocked it out. But that's why I was asking how many parking spaces you could lose.
I think if we did that and we lost spaces here, we would still end up having to accommodate that very large drive aisle and then an intersection that's just a swath of asphalt. So there'd still need to be some accommodations outside of what we control to make that shift work.
Right.
So basically, this was just to show that this turn that's been there for 40, 50 years works and that we can accommodate it. So we'll share this with the fire marshal, get his buy off, and assuming he buys off on this, we'll move forward with what we currently have.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
You'll move forward with what you currently have, not what he had.
Correct. The plan is to move forward with what we currently have shown on our plan, given the fact that the fire turn works as shown.
It's likely that there are a lot of changes to the mall, as you have seen, and there'll be particularly change in that area, that corner, and they'll be before you with some kind of an application sometime when they're trying to cite new tenants in some of that part of the area. We're restricted with our lease lines. That's what we got. That's what we got to work with.
So again, to that end, when we were looking at this radius right here on the curb, there's about a 6 foot gap between this curb and this curb here. We can soften this radius up, which is within our lease line, to help soften the existing turn that's there now that you guys are mentioning. So even if we left a 1 or 2 foot gap in between the corner of that curb there, I'm sorry for my shaky hand, the corner right here, that would be where we could get that and soften the radius up a bit, if so desired. However, it's not necessary for the truck maneuver. All right. So with that, the existing shopping plaza does have 873 spaces. This reduction is down to 827, which is about 46 spaces lost. And I think originally, and the planner had agreed, the regulations as they currently read, I believe it's 2.75 per 500 square feet. So it's 5.5 per 1,000 as far as what the current requirement is. So under existing conditions, they have less than that now. But right now, even after our proposed development, you're still looking at a more typical 4 per 1,000, which was typical before COVID even happened. So now those numbers, we're starting to see a trend of those are even coming down in shopping centers where you're at 3 to 3.5 normally. So we still provide, after this development's done, roughly 4 per 1,000 spaces. The engineer had submitted some comments. I know we received a letter a couple weeks ago. We had sent in comments or a response to his comment letter addressing the majority of them. This afternoon, I received a letter that had 6 or so remaining items, all of which were minor in nature, so discrepancies on a detail. He wanted us to add an a tracking pad, an anti-tracking pad temporarily for the RENS measures. So all of those outstanding items in his letter that just came out, we're able to accommodate very easily should you vote to approve this evening. With regards to drainage, again, I mentioned the fact that, and you can go back to the original, maybe one more before, just one up right there. So the existing conditions, everything had drained right to this catch basin right here. So the whole parking lot all came down to this location and then out in this direction here. So no water quality treatment. And what we're proposing to do is in conformance with the 2004 Connecticut Stormwater Quality Manual and the MS4 permit that's currently in place, where we're providing and catching, there's a catch basin here, 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 that route to an underground water quality infiltration system with an isolator row to treat water quality before discharging into this catch basin. So one of the remaining comments from the engineer was for us to highlight let me see the name of it, the directly connected impervious, which we had not done in the first iteration. We were asking for some clarification. The direct impervious surface is basically under existing conditions, water that's getting off from an impervious surface that's not treated. So we went ahead and did that calculation, and when you look at that, there's a net reduction of 6,000 square feet of impervious surface that was getting there directly that now is not getting there directly. With regards to lighting, we are proposing dark sky compliant LED fixtures, zero spillage on the lot lines. And then from a landscaping standpoint, again, you can see on here, there's several ornamental trees, shrubs, and deciduous trees along this buffer. And again, there's a large easement in here, or a large berm in this location. So a lot of what's shown on the ground here is not even visible from Route 44. You would just see half the building and up, we are complying with the 2002 erosion and sediment control guidelines, so there will be silt sacks at all the catch basins, silt fence around the perimeter of the site. That's really it at a high level. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Commissioners?
Yeah, when you look at that, back in our favorite little corner up there at the top.
Yeah.
So it's sort of odd to me. There's just like these little parking spaces kind of off on their own little section there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it is? It's just like a little section of cars, but it's not. Can they? I'm assuming they can walk through or something, but they obviously cannot drive through. It's
correct. So this exhibit, since we got those comments late, the exhibit here and one of the comments from engineering was to provide ADA ramps on either side with a crosswalk and then the sidewalk connection with an ADA ramp. Okay. So on the most recent submission, the crosswalk and the sidewalks were added. He asked that they be ADA accessible as well, so we're just going to go ahead and add a ramp on either side of these two locations so that they're connected. And it was really a result of one, and why we went to ZBA, we're kind of pinned the whole development, and there's really not much else that can fit here, given the fact that this existing drive aisle that you could see on the aerial underneath is where we had to start the development and work our way west, because we needed to maintain access to the bank on this area where their drive-through is. So we were really pinned, and this use actually benefited us quite well, because it is a very narrow footprint that allowed us to do this. But to get that circulation, that's why that's closed off.
All right, so I'll say it's like a dead zone over there, so it's nice that you're developing. I will say that. But also, I'm just curious. What do you have to go through with Avon to get approval on this? Do you have to do anything with them as well?
So Avon gets a cursory review of this application when we did make the submission, so there was feedback received from Avon. But as far as going, I don't believe we go to any of those commission meetings. They just give their opinion on the matter. Okay. And especially since the majority, you can't see it on here now, I just draw it again. It's right, that line comes like here, so 90% of this is in.
Okay.
It's basically the drive-through, and the exit to the drive-through is in Simsbury, and then this little sliver here is in there. And again, this parking stall, what you can't see is there's a light gray line right at the end of these stalls. To the right of that, we can't touch. So we're actually matching the pavement right at that location, which is similar to the north where our lease line runs out on the side.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions of the commission?
I just one more. One of the conditions that has been offered in a draft document for us to look at as an approval, it refers to the, I didn't notice this, the site plan set that was submitted was dated January 23rd, 22. Is your firm, did you do these drawings in January 22? Was that somebody else's work?
Original date, just the original date.
Yeah, we had an original date, we had supplemental submission, so the latest plan set is from July 7th, 2023. And the July 7th, 2023 set addressed the engineering comments we received a couple weeks ago. And then again, from the...
Addressed some of them, but you said you haven't addressed all of the engineering.
There's a handful that are outstanding, which we would address as part of this, and none of them are major, nor would they affect the approval and or the design for that
See,
matter.
the difficulty we have is, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a designer. Right? With a lot of that, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm relying on the town engineer.
Understood.
The town engineer.
Yeah, he
responded.
had some great feedback. We work well with him, and the 6 comments remaining, again, are very minor in nature.
I'm trying to understand. We're here. We're trying to do something, but your process started sometime in January 22 or before that. Here we are now, with unresolved issues with the fire marshal and the town engineer. It wears this level of sympathy pretty thin for the concern that you guys have.
I think that's a typo. We didn't start this till 2023, so that was January 23, and then the first revision we had when we got the ZBA was in May of 16.
But somebody started in 22. I don't know who it was, but
I'm not positive.
It may have been my fault. Maybe my fault. Possible.
I don't care whose fault it is. We're here
Maybe
tonight.
my error.
Yeah.
I've only known TJ for like 5 months, so I can't.
Okay, any more comments from the commission or questions before we let the public?
I just have one more comment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
At the 2 prior sessions that we had at the Design Review Board and at the Zoning Board of Appeals, the neighbor in the design warehouse expressed absolute favor and they're delighted with this development, but they did submit exhibits to the town of Simsbury, which are part of the record of the other 2 proceedings, that they're all in favor of this.
Okay, does anyone in the public care to speak to this? Go ahead.
I do want to clear George on this. I just checked the plans, and it's January 22 on our plan, so there was a typo on our part on the cover sheet. So I just
redeemed.
Okay, come up to the podium, please.
Good evening. My name's Ellen Gilbert. I live at 126 Hot Meadows Street, Unit 3E. This is my bank, and I use that drive-through almost exclusively. I don't go in the bank very often. And typically that driving in, if you're coming from, say, Main Street, and I go in, I take a left, and then I take another left to go around to go to the drive-through. And it's not, I use the ATM. My concern is, and I'd like to see what the projected traffic pattern is if you have people coming into that same, it looks like 3 breadths of cars, like 1 coming in and 2 going out, and then they have to crisscross if there's people parking and people who are going through the drive-through. So if you could describe that, because...
Sorry, ma'am, you can express the concern about the traffic flow.
Okay.
But you can't ask questions of the developer.
I'm concerned about the traffic flow and the crisscross between the restaurant and going through the drive-through, whether you're using the ATM or the 2. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else care to speak to this application? Don't hear any more.
All set down this way.
All set over there.
I just, what's the resolution to the fire marshal issue?
I'm thinking we could put a condition in.
Maybe it's appropriate for me to characterize the discussions. So what we normally do is we meet as a group internally. We meet with the fire marshal, we meet with the town engineer, we meet with the police chief. We talk about certain issues. My characterization of the fire marshal comments is more about a concern for overall traffic flow and improving that existing condition there. More than it is about specific emergency services movements. Because everybody knows that corner is a little funky when you get there. I mean, that's the issue. And while both the town engineer and the police chief agreed that intersection is difficult and would prefer an alternative, they did not recommend a redesign, essentially an off-site redesign of that entrance road. The fire marshal did. And staff is not carrying that as a recommendation. We are not recommending that the applicant redo that intersection.
Can I answer your question, Tony?
Yes.
I mean, it is off the property, basically. Is
Okay, yeah, now I'm clear, thanks.
Any comments?
Oh, I have a couple more comments, but do you want to close the public hearing? Is that where we are?
Well, we can. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh.
I'd like to comment before you close the public hearing. Well, I can still speak. In general, across the country, towns are stepping up and banning drive-throughs because of the carbon emissions, because of the traffic problems, because of pedestrian conflicts. If there is a place in Simsbury for drive-throughs going forward, this will probably be the spot because we don't have pedestrian conflicts there. It's already a major road that, we're not putting sidewalks there right now. We're not trying to increase the walkability of this area right now. But I think that as a commission, that's something that we need to be mindful of. But if there's a spot for it, this is probably it.
Thank you. Are you ready to close the public hearing, or do you want to continue it?
I'm ready to close it.
Okay, we'll make a motion.
I move that we close the public hearing on application 23-26.
Second.
Second by Diane. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It carries 6-0. Okay, let's talk about the application. Are people concerned still about the fire marshal's desire to change that?
I'm concerned, but my concern isn't that the fire marshal gets his way. That what I'm interested in is a condition that there has to be some resolution with the fire marshal. If the fire marshal says, okay, and we don't rely on George's interpretation, but the fire marshal says, well, okay, it's not that important, then the fire marshal can sign off that he's satisfied, with the conditions of the plan and the concern he raised is not so serious, yada, yada. But I also think that I would say the same thing about the town engineer and the unresolved half dozen or so that the applicant describes as not very serious, but I don't know serious from not serious. The town engineer says, this is my concern, and it's unresponded to by the applicant. So I think we should do two conditions, one about, resolving with the engineer and one about resolving with the fire marshal before construction starts over there. But I'm in favor of the project, but I don't think we should just sort of let it go that, our professional staff have offered concerns and we sort of ignore them and just go ahead and improve it.
Bruce, I would say that the fifth condition here is that the applicant will revise the site plan per the recommendations of the town engineer. So I think that addresses the engineer.
Well, I thought the language was a little broader than that.
As depicted in the engineer's letter dated 7/17.
And I think we need to add the fire marshal.
And I would say, absolutely, yes.
That does it for me.
I would ask for a specific condition.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then is it unreasonable to ask if the fire marshal just signs off on it, or what would you recommend, how would you recommend we word it?
I think the fire marshal has to sign off on it. He's got the final control of whether it's safe or not.
Okay.
I mean, he could say, sorry, redesign the whole world over there.
Or can he?
And it doesn't mean it can't be done.
Can he assert that it
These guys
meets
can't be doing it.
requirements for the
That's what
fire
they say.
truck?
What?
Instead of saying it's what he wants, can he assert that it meets requirements for the
Well,
fire
it's-
truck to move
yeah.
through the site?
Well, that's what we're
They
talking
did
about.
something since that.
Instead
so
of saying,
perhaps-
I'd rather it be this way.
Yeah, I think you're right, I think that sounds better.
Well, then he really has no basis for just saying that it needs to be changed, it ought to be changed.
Well, if he agrees that the turning radiuses and everything, as depicted, meet the requirements for the fire truck to move through the site, whether it's exactly the way he wants to do it or not, then I think that would be acceptable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion? Diane?
I was just gonna say, this one's hard.
I was waiting for the shorter one.
Okay.
On findings and special exception criteria, you can just reference those in the staff report or those shown in the draft. You don't have to read them all.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, all right. I move that the zoning commission approves zoning commission, approves application ZC 23-26, 530 Bushy Hill Road, an application for special exception site plan pursuant to section 4 and section 11 of the zoning regulations to permit a plus or minus 3,284 square foot restaurant at 530 Bushy Hills Road. Assessors map B20, block 508, lot 001-B in the B3 zone, subject to the following findings and conditions as documented in the staff document provided on 7/17, is that what we said? Okay, good.
Yes.
The project satisfies
Confirmed.
both site plan and special exception standards found in section 11 and section 4 respectively. Conditions. The project shall be developed in substantial conformance with the site plan set dated 1/23/22, revised, 22, revised 7/7/23, prepared by Bowler Engineering. The project shall be developed in substantial conformance with the architectural plans dated 4/19/23, prepared by 88 Architects. Prior to the issuance of a building permit for this project, the applicant shall submit to the town of Simsbury an erosion and sediment control bond in a form acceptable to the town in the amount of $8,000. Prior to the release of any bonds for this project, the applicant shall submit 2 sets of Mylars and 1 paper set for signature and recordation. Prior to the issuance of a building permit for the project, the applicant shall revise the site plan set per the recommendations of the town engineer as depicted in the engineer's letter dated 7/17/23. And prior to the issuance of a building permit for the project, the applicant shall, the fire marshal shall approve the test, the fire truck test that was presented to us by the applicant as acceptable and,
Safe.
and safe. Are we
Here,
good?
second?
Second?
Second by Tony. Further discussion.
I didn't hear something that really speaks to this, the outstanding conditions of the engineer that are unresponded
Five
to.
said,
Five.
is to revise the site plan that per the recommendations of the letter dated July 17th. Okay?
Done deal. Yeah.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 6-0. Thank you very much.
Do we want, is it, this is gonna go fairly quickly, I guess, but do we want to try to maybe move up, mill rights? just to give
Oh,
them
but
the
we
opportunity.
love looking at them, huh?
I mean, they've waited so long, I don't know if we
Okay,
could just.
why don't you make a motion to,
Your
Okay.
next item is related to food trucks.
It is really?
So you can do it all if you want.
Okay, this will probably be quick anyway, so. Okay, never mind.
okay, public hearing. We have Simsbury Zoning Commission, application 2327, applicant George McGregor, agent for a text amendment to the Simsbury zoning regulations pursuant to sections 4.5 and 5.5 and 17.4 on the establishment of a new section 8.7 to allow mobile food vendors as an accessory use in business, industrial, and planned area development districts.
So you've met a number of different times on this, and we have prepared a draft that tries to encapsulate some of the concerns that we heard from local businesses in particular. And so really, again, the primary change you see from the original draft suggested allowing mobile food vendors at all commercial establishments through a process. This revision would allow them only at locations of food where there are food and beverage activities or food and beverage uses, bars, restaurants, etc. The proposal would rely on staff approval as an administrative approval for mobile vendors, and it does carve out a number of exceptions related to community events and personal use at your house. If you're having a birthday party at your house, you don't have to come and get a permit, and a number of other things. I'm happy to answer any questions. It is a public hearing.
Can we make it bigger?
Can you make the
I can make
text
it as big as you
larger?
like.
Excellent.
All right, I'll start again, I have a quick question.
So, yeah, so let me just,
go ahead.
so the draft defines mobile vendor, states purpose and kind of general requirements, where it would be permitted, what zoning districts. It also sets forth, the type of trailer, the type of vehicle, no homemade units essentially. And then talks a little bit about where they would permit it on site. We want to see a site plan as part of that, approval. Where does it go? Where is it on site? Draws the distinction between units that are mobile and units that are permanent. So, as you remember with millwrights, we approved the millwrights application as an accessory use because it's essentially in a permanent location. It's not driving around town. That's the location it's going to be. So that continues to be that carve out. We set an approval process again, including specific submission items, written permission from the property owner, of course, picture description of the truck, site plan showing the location, and of course an explanation of hours of operation, availability, those kinds of things. Happy to how we got here.
Comments?
Happy to.
Commission.
I just, I'm new to the commission, and I wasn't involved in discussions about this previously. I did have some questions after I reviewed this. I had an opportunity to talk with George this morning, but I wanted to see if it would be possible to continue this hearing until next month so that I could, until September, so I could have some additional time to study this and perhaps get more comfortable with the proposal.
Okay. Well, you can make a motion to that effect.
Well, I would.
But before we,
Certainly, you've got folks here who might want to talk about it. I would certainly accept that public comment tonight, and then you can decide whether to continue or not.
right. So let's continue our discussion.
All right.
And let people make their comments.
Okay.
And then we'll decide on what to do. Bruce?
Well, I just have one off the top of my head, and well, it's more than that, but under the general requirements, I don't remember the detail of this conversation, but it says all mobile vending units shall be commercially manufactured. parenthesis, not homemade. I don't know if everyone's aware, the Department of Motor Vehicles has a registration category for homemade vehicles. I have a trailer for my boat that's homemade. It says a special registration category, and they issue the vehicle ID number, and they put a thing on the side of your trailer. So, I'm not sure if it's something that the Department of Motor Vehicle will register. Why do we want to get into this haggle over whether it's homemade or not? And at what point does something be modified to an extent where,
I had the same question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same question.
It's a good question.
If you can register it and drive it around the road.
Yeah.
Would pass health code?
Pardon?
Is it,
I think that's one of the.
would it pass health
And if
code?
you're
Is that
cooking,
where it's coming
if
from?
you're like any kind of cooking device on it, I would think would have to be,
The health department.
Well, that's number 8 too, so.
but any kind of heating device too, I would be concerned with.
But I guess, would that be addressed in number 8, where it has to pass the health district and the fire marshal?
Yeah, I mean, you.
So.
Yeah, so it can't,
Wow, interesting.
it can't be a grill duct taped to a pickup truck.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think there was, I think there was
Wooden
an attempt to
countertop,
establish
right, yeah.
some threshold of,
Yeah.
kind of minimum standard.
So are we good with taking the 1 out and leaving 8 in then? Interesting.
Well, let's see what the public has to say. I mean, we don't
Yeah,
necessarily have
that's
to
a comment.
revise this. But
Just remember, since it's a commission generated or staff generated item, there's no timelines. You're not faced with, or pressure on decision making necessarily.
Okay, commissioners finished making
I
your,
got a quick question.
okay.
So under the approval process, number 2, we're saying 1 mobile food vending unit per food establishment. Did we decide on that? Was that a definite? Because again, I'm strictly looking from a brewery standpoint.
Okay, so there's the second sentence.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. You're right. I'm sorry. So my follow-up question to that is, do they have, so if I were, for instance, a brewery, and this week I'm getting the, the grilled cheese food truck, and next week, like, if I wanted more than 1 food truck multiple weeks in a row, do I have to come back to get a special exception every time?
I understand the question. It probably needs some clarification. At any one time was the intent. So not.
What I'm saying,
Not
they may
rotating, no.
occasionally have 2 trucks
Sorry.
that day, and so they would have, if they wanted to be able to have 2 trucks and they had room for it.
Right, so this draft would recommend if it's 1 truck at one time, staff approval.
Yep.
If it's more than 1 truck at one time, then they should come to you for approval. And again, that would just be for all time. So
Okay, that's
this
what
is where we
I
would
just didn't want
put
them to
the
have
2
trouble.
food trucks on site at any particular time.
Okay.
It's site plan approval, it's not a special exception.
Yes, for site plan, yes.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to verify that it wasn't gonna be like a regular thing that they'd have to do.
Staff is happy to review, more than 1, but I think it was my sense for the commission would like to see when there are multiple involved.
Yep, fair. Okay, thanks.
Okay, shall we open it up to the public? Okay. People in the public want to speak?
We've been sitting here all night.
Go ahead.
I'm Angelica Sotnick. I'm the store manager of Tractor Supply. Lucky enough to be there. I've been in the community for 30 years, and I think all of you know that I was the one that had a food truck in my parking lot. Mainly because Tractor Supply throughout state of Connecticut and Massachusetts, they all do it. So I thought, okay, Chick Days came along, it's a community event, and I thought, let's have Chick-fil-A in the parking lot, just like all of my other sister stores were having. And that created a big hullabaloo, and I apologize for that. We did look into, prior to the changes here, the regulations, and from what I can understand, I'm not a member of the board, and I do try to stay abreast of everything. If it was not taking up any parking spaces and we didn't have more than 1,500 people, he usually sold about 20 sandwiches every Wednesday when we had our Chick Days, which are coming back again. And he came to the town and asked what the regulations were, and they said, yeah, you can do that, so we did it. And from my understanding, it was embarrassing to have a member of our board come in our parking lot yelling at my customers who are waiting in line to buy their chicken sandwiches, screaming at the customers, and to the point where, we are taxpayers here too. I've been in this town in Granby for 30 years. And Tractor Supply has been fabulous in being a part of this community. My question, I don't know if I don't think I can ask questions, can I? No. So I do want to know what a community, I've been a part of the community events in Simsbury, at the park, at the Halloween. What would entail a community event? And we have and do host them at Tractor Supply. We have 4-H, we have FFA, we have multiple people that use our space that we give to the community. What would that be in order to have a food vendor? I mean, that would be kind of something I would be interested in knowing. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else care to speak? Mr. Nelson.
Excuse me?
Yes, Mr. Nelson.
Chris Nelson, I'm a residential builder and developer. We have a couple, and this might be covered in the exceptions, but I didn't see it, but Highcroft, for example, is an apartment community. Carson Way is a residential homes community. Both places occasionally have like a block party or a community event, and a food truck is an exciting feature to bring in for one of those events. So I'm just wondering, in the exceptions, is if Highcroft wanted to have a food truck as part of their Free Food Friday tradition one month, is that allowed? Or if Carson Way, the residents at Carson Way want to have a block party and bring in a food truck for that day, is that allowed? Thanks.
Isn't there a provision that private?
So we attempted to address that in item number 4. Private events in any zoning district not open to the general public.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's how we would
that
implement
addresses.
that, yeah.
But in those two developments, though, the Carson Way in particular, there are public roads in there, right?
Those are private roads.
They're all private roads? Oh, okay, I just wanted to, and then Highcroft is all private roads. Okay, thank you.
It's just for the residents, so it would be exactly what the 4 is saying. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Does that mean then that block parties being permissible rests on whether it's a privately owned road or public? Because like the Heights has this incredible block party every summer in August. Why would they be allowed to have
It doesn't.
It doesn't?
It doesn't. I
Okay.
think we would interpret it that way.
Okay.
You have to sign up anyway, so it's.
Open to the public means available to anyone. That's
Gotcha.
That would be our expectation.
And then speak.
I'm gonna try and read this off my phone, this may be interesting. I hope these glasses are strong enough. Hi, I'm Lori Boyko from 15 Oakhurst Road. And I want to say that this whole food truck thing is becoming much more common across the country, and many towns are implementing regulations about the food trucks. And I do think they should be regulated in some way within zoning. However, in Federalist Paper number 10, Madison says that the regulation of various and interfering interests forms the principal task of modern legislation. This regulation should not consist in the dominance of one interest, majority or minority, over others, but should seek to attain the permanent and aggregate interests of the community. The Constitution of the State of Connecticut, by which all town governing bodies are bound, in Article 1, Declaration of Rights, Section 1, states, quote, "All men, when they form a social compact, are equal in rights, and no man or set of men are entitled to exclusive public emoluments or privileges from the community. The proposed mobile food vendor text amendment is currently written in such a way that provides unmistakable competitive business advantages to some business owners while disadvantaging others. In fact, at the special meeting to craft the wording of this amendment, both restaurant owners at the table and the Main Street Partnership promoted the idea that only those who already own restaurants in town should be allowed to have food trucks come to their property. And they clearly articulated that this was specifically to give them a business advantage by limiting competing food businesses and requiring consumers who want food at off-premise locations, such as office buildings, to have to order catering or delivery specifically from local restaurants. I understand that as a result of COVID, the state has codified some of as-right uses specifically for outdoor dining, categorizing outdoor service as an, quote, accessory use to a restaurant. I don't entirely disagree with this, but, and there's a big but, the Connecticut general statutes refer to an accessory use, which in planning parlance is defined as, quote, clearly and customarily incidental and actually subordinate to the permitted principal use. While outdoor dining served from the same kitchen and bar area at tables just outside on a sidewalk are clearly incidental to and subordinate to a restaurant, a food truck with a different name, different menu, different pricing, website, social media accounts, and even actually different registered LLC with the Secretary of State, are neither customarily incidental to, nor directly subordinate to, the principal restaurant by definition. They are separate and additional businesses. They may be incidental, but that's hardly customary. Consequently, while I am entirely in favor of both food trucks and real regulations on them, in keeping them within specific business zones and limitations on frequency, I don't think they can legally be designated as allowed for existing restaurants only and no other businesses or community organizations. To allow food trucks for existing restaurants but not other properties like the high school during track meets, which is not single payer, the Historical Society sometimes, office buildings at lunchtime, or other business sites, for example, restrains free trade and disadvantages both consumers and other businesses unequally. I realize there are certain carve-outs here, but they are so narrowly tailored as to pertain to very specific other properties in town, like the collective, specific farms, or individual businesses. I think this text amendment needs to be revised to apply equally to all businesses and other entities and not disproportionately advantage some. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak to this application?
I just want to clarify, because I don't think necessarily you got your question answered about whether.
I don't think I could ask
You can't ask questions.
Right, she can't.
You
throw it out.
I can. So, in the event that there were certain events on a regular basis at a particular retail place, there are provisions currently for those events to be approved and to allow food trucks, correct?
No.
No?
I'm not sure that's correct.
Well,
As currently drafted, let me answer two ways. As currently drafted, it would only allow the food truck get food and beverage uses in your zoning districts.
but we have them at block parties.
Yeah, so we've defined those differently. We've tailored those differently. And we've defined community events as events where public gathering permits have been obtained, which means on public property. So in this case, the language doesn't address the needs or the requests of the Tractor Supply folks.
Okay.
It does not, so we would need to, with direction, we would need to change that.
Well, what was the explanation given by, I don't know if it was somebody from our commission who was creating a disturbance down there to try to rectify some situation?
I don't know.
Was it any of us? I don't believe any of us were there, so I.
From this
I was gonna say,
eminent
from our
body,
board, I don't think so.
would anybody
We're
really
not,
do
we're
that?
not guilty.
We're all looking
But
at each other.
I think we ought to vote to continue this and let staff mull over the public comments
Yeah.
and let us think about it. And then we'll pick it up again.
Okay, so we need a
So
motion
let's
to,
motion to move to continue this to September 6th, our next meeting.
I'll second that.
Make a
I'll make the motion.
You make the motion, okay. Bruce will second. Any other comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. And no abstention, so it carries 6-0. Okay. Application. Wait a minute, did we? No, we extended it, okay. Next public hearing is application ZC 23-28 of Simsbury Grist Mill LLC, owner, Chris Nelson, applicant, for a special exception and site plan amendment pursuant to section 8.6 for a restaurant liquor permit and to permit a plus or minus 300 square foot tent with a service counter in the parking lot of Millwright's Restaurant at 77 West Street, Assessor's Map F11, Block 103, Lot 005-21, Zone PAD. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for your time tonight. We were here about 6 weeks ago, and we had requested permission to have a food truck in the parking lot. And we're here to complete that application because we were missing a few things when we asked. I am here as owner of the grist mill, as is Mary Ellen Nelson, who you saw before, and Tyler Anderson as the owner proprietor for Millwrights and Takyu. So he can answer any questions related to use, certainly, and I can on the property itself. We're here to modify the approval. There were two things that, subsequent to our approval, we figured out that we really did need. One was a special exception to serve alcohol from the food truck location. I think we thought it was covered under the Millwrights location or the existing permit they have with the state. But in the town regulations, they're considering this a separate location outside of the Millwrights' current restaurant. So that's fine. So we're asking for permission to serve alcohol out of that location. And the second thing is to amend the site plan. When we put the food truck there, there's a sidewalk with a curb. That curb made everybody step down and step back up, and so we just wanted to put a 6-inch platform there and a tent over it to just make it better for the patrons as well as the staff that are working right there taking orders. And there's a small 6-foot counter where people would take orders just outside the food truck. This is a picture of exactly what we'd like to do. We have since taken that tent down and taken that yellow platform away. They were for patron convenience and comfort, but this new application shows exactly what you see right there. So that's what we're asking for, as well as the ability to serve alcohol out of that location. People take it, actually the staff takes the alcohol down to the picnic area, right down below, which was approved in the last application as well.
Okay, commissioners, questions, comments? I think we've heard all of this. Okay, are we ready for the public?
Yes.
Any comments? Go ahead. Are there any people in the public who wish to speak to this application?
Hi, I'm Lori Boyko from 15 Oakhurst Road. There are so many development proposals and special exception requests that I feel like I'm playing whack-a-mole keeping up with them all. I'm sure you do too. It seems that special exceptions have become the norm and already approved zoning regulations are more like a suggestion. As an abutting property owner and longtime town resident, I'm growing increasingly frustrated with Tyler Anderson's sense that he has unfettered ability to do whatever he wants on the Millwrights property without regard for residential neighbors to the property, state agency regulations like the Liquor Control Commission, and our town zoning regulations. Tyler has been in the restaurant and catering business in this state and our town for decades and is well aware of all regulations, laws, and ordinances that pertain to his businesses, or should be aware of those. In fact, this board asked him if he was fully compliant the last time that he applied for and was granted a site plan amendment considered under the representation that the food truck was considered a, quote, accessory use. He consistently pushes the envelope over the line by not only violating state liquor laws, but also thumbing his nose at those regulations on social media as if they should not apply to him or his business. He knowingly and deliberately had an unapproved detached sign for take, blue tents had gone up, a bar and serving station have already been built, trash cans are out there that receive food waste from customers, and last weekend he added a 2-story blow-up dancing cactus in direct violation of Simsbury zoning regulations. That picture is staged. It's like a total circus down there. In the meantime, the driveway and parking lot have been thrown into utter chaos with dumpsters, staging of building materials, and reduced number of parking spaces as required by zoning regulations. The food truck business named Take operates as a completely separate and distinct business from Millwrights, with separate seating, separate food service, menus, separate websites, social media accounts, and a completely separate LLC, which is why they need separate liquor licenses. It is neither clearly and customarily incidental to either the fine dining Millwrights restaurant or the grist mill commercial property, nor is it subordinate to Millwrights since it's entirely different business entity. As such, approval of the truck alone legally required a special exception to be allowed on that site, not the site plan amendment that was incorrectly approved, because by definition, it is not an accessory use. To add insult to injury, the applicant is now here asking for a site plan amendment for more structure and activity on a site that is already improperly there, and a special exception for a liquor license on a site that has already improperly been amended. I think it's time to stop incidental amendments and special exceptions and look more closely at what is going on there. Simsbury regulations require that it is incumbent on the applicant to affirmatively demonstrate all regulation requirements have been met. At a bare minimum, that needs to meet ADA compliance, which I'm not sure it does with the tent poles in the middle of the sidewalk. It is also incumbent per section 8.6 of the zoning regulations in considering the proposed liquor outlet, the commission shall be guided by the following. A, the need for the proposed use in the proposed location. And typically need in zoning doesn't pertain to the desire for increased profit. The existing future character of the neighborhood in which the use is proposed, traffic which is likely to be generated by the proposed use, and the traffic in that parking lot is probably 5 to 6 times what it ever was under Millwrights. And safeguards necessary to protect adjacent property and the neighborhood in general. Additionally, for a special exception, the zoning commission is required to evaluate property values, public safety, traffic, landscaping and buffers, and utility systems drainage. I disagree as a 25-year local realtor and mortgage lender with the staff opinion that this food truck with alcohol would not have an adverse impact on the property values of the abutters. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other people who would like to speak to this application? I think
I'd
we
be happy
would.
to close, if I may.
Pardon?
I'd be happy to just close our time, if I may.
Okay, go ahead.
First, thank you for your comments. This is clearly, there's food made in the kitchen, same staff, same employees. This is an accessory use to Millwrights. There's no question about that. We are not multiplying the number of traffic through there. We have a chaos right now because the building's under construction. We're investing in a new roof and painting and all sorts of other things that you've already approved in this commission. But I just disagree with a lot of what was just represented.
Okay, Chris, we can't have a debate here.
Thank you.
We're prepared to close the public hearing?
Move to close the public hearing.
And moved, second by Tony. Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, it's closed, 6-0. Okay. Want to consider the application?
Anybody want to push this one till the next meeting? Or do we want to decide tonight?
I think they have to decide because
We've closed.
theoretically they can't operate without a.
Okay.
I mean, can I comment on that right now?
What I'm wondering is how do we have an enforcement crew in the zoning department. I mean, shouldn't we have somebody who knows a lot about and works in enforcement of our zoning regulations respond to some of those allegations? Wouldn't that be helpful? I mean, I'm not out looking at these sites and I don't know, one says, oh, it's in perfect compliance and one says, no, it's not in compliance. Well, how do I know?
Well, I think we have staff.
I think we.
Right, that's my point, but when does that start? The staff sort of input or some consulting from the staff or some input from the staff on the assortment of allegations we just heard. Or maybe we don't get any, I mean, I don't know. That's my concern, so.
I think, to me, this is an application that's fixing something that was omitted in the previous application. And that's what it is. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that there are some complaints about things which has been voiced in the last go-round, actually. And I think that, for me, that I don't know. I'm happy with what the application says and what these guys need to do to continue their business.
So you think the information we received from a member of the public was in error?
I'm taking it under consideration with.
I
We
guess,
can't both be right.
No, I guess I would maybe throw it back to George and his staff. Are you still comfortable with your recommendations, or do you think you need to explore it further, based on the comments?
We're comfortable with our recommendations. I mean, the questions of enforcement, I mean, the reason we're here is because of enforcement action. We understood they were selling alcohol out of the food truck, and so that got us here. The concerns about the tent being up and the platform being up were brought to our attention. We asked them to take it down. That was an enforcement action. So that, I mean, that's all. These are all valid. They were all valid concerns. Same thing with the cactus. That was brought to our attention. We asked the applicant to take it down. So we've had kind of continuous enforcement steps.
So right now, there are no infractions. at that location. that
Not
you're
aware of any
aware
infractions.
Okay,
I'll take it into consideration.
Yeah, I would say, I feel like it's two things. We're considering the application ahead of us, and then there's the enforcement in general that probably should be done separate, but, you know, across all businesses in town as things come up. But, I mean, I think this is separate, in my mind.
well, if you're ready to make a motion, let's do it, otherwise continue.
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
Move the zoning commission approves application ZC number 23-28 of Simsbury Gristmill LLC, owner Chris Nelson, applicant for a special exception pursuant to section 8.6 of the Simsbury zoning regulations to allow the selling of alcoholic beverages from the approved food truck at Millwright's Restaurant, 77 West Street, Assessor's Map F11, Block 103, Lot 005-21, based upon the following findings. Special exception criteria found, I think there's a word missing, in, should there be in there?
Yeah.
In section 12 of the Town of Simsbury zoning regulations have been substantially met or satisfied. Those considerations include 1, orderly development, 2, property values, 3, public safety, 4, traffic considerations, 5, landscaping and buffers, and 6, relationship to utility systems, drainage systems, and impact on community facilities. And based upon the following finding, 1, the application is not expected to have any negative impacts on the above considerations.
second?
I'll second it.
Second by Ann. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. No, anybody abstaining? Anybody?
I was aye.
You were aye?
Yes.
Okay, so passes 6-0, thank you.
Yeah, I would, because we did bring the site plan amendment that adds the tent and the platform, a separate motion would be appropriate.
Yes, I see that. I'll make this the next page, second.
Okay. Move the zoning commission approves application ZC number 23-28 of Simsbury Gristmill LLC, owner Chris Nelson, applicant site plan amendment pursuant to section 11 of the Simsbury zoning regulations for a plus or minus 300 square foot tent with service counter in the parking lot of Millwright's Restaurant at 77 West Street, Assessor's Map F11, Block 103, Lot 005-21, based upon the following findings. 1, the application meets the site plan requirements set forth in Section 11 of the zoning regulations and is subject to the following conditions. 1, the project shall be developed in substantial conformance to the site plan titled, quote, Simsbury Gristmill Covered Bridge Reconstruction, Deck Removal, Seasonal Food Truck Placement with Lower Level Lining revised on 6/9/2023, prepared by Lorero Engineering Associates. 2, an administrative zoning permit is required prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Here, second.
I'll second it.
Second by Ann. Any further comments?
Yeah.
Good.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, it passes 6-0. Thank you very much. Okay, we've reached the last, I think. Application ZC 23-29 of Julian Nevin Christensen owners for a special exception pursuant to section 3.4 for a church/school use located on Flemic Farm at 7 Shingle Mill Road, Assessor's Map B11, Block 404, Lot 010, Zone R40. Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I have a question. I live down the street from Flemic Farm, not abutting it, but just several doors down. Should I recluse myself?
Well, I do too, so.
Yeah, I think I'm
no.
closer than you are, though.
No, I don't think so. There's no,
Okay.
you have no pecuniary interest
No.
in it. But you don't hate your neighbors.
No.
Okay.
You're the only one who can decide whether to recuse yourself. No one can make you recuse yourself.
Well, no, but I would, that's why I wanted the opinion. I don't think I need to, no.
You're gonna get sued if you didn't recuse yourself.
Okay,
But I wanted the opinion.
you want to tell us what you want to do?
Speak to that.
Briskly?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Thank you, appreciate that.
As long as he's.
Nevin Christensen, representing Flemic Farm. My wife is the boss and runs everything there. I do what she tells me to. What we're looking to do, we're taking part of our big red chicken coop. It's initially 4 big chicken coops in that building. The one that we're going to take, it's approximately 36 feet by 36 feet, northwest side. And it's been a chicken coop, it's been an open run-in shed, it's been 6 horse stalls, and we've recently torn those out and just made it's one big open space that we hope to use as a indoor space for children to come learn about nature and animals and all that stuff. Kelly, can we introduce Kelly, who wants to run the ministry there?
Okay.
Come on up, Kelly. Tell them what you're doing.
I'm Kelly Schumacher. I formed this Little Farmers Ministry mainly because I have a 5-year-old son and I was a teacher before I had him and quit to raise him and ended up at their farm during COVID, like all the time, took their toddler classes, and then talking with Julie just said it was just such a beautiful spot to form a little ministry learning center where the kids can learn about God, learn about the farm, learn what really comes from going to the grocery store, like the hard work that it takes. And they have been more than amazing letting me kind of trial this. And there's a lot of interest, and we'd love to just redo that barn the right way so we can run it even in the winter and just have a nice spot for the kids to meet.
Good. Questions of the commissioners?
So when it says a church/school, it's mostly a church school.
Yes.
It's not going to be a church.
It's a ministry, and it's also a PMA, which is like a private members association. So everybody signs, before they come in, just knowing that it is ministry based and that it is creation based, and that's kind of what the focus is among all the other things that the kids will be learning.
But it's going to be kids learning stuff, not a church.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just clarifying.
The zoning ordinance doesn't fit it into this perfect category.
No, it is, yeah, I get it. Okay, that's fine. I was just wondering.
Are you talking about having this as an after-school program? Are you talking about being licensed as a regular school?
So it's not a school. We've been meeting with lawyers. It's essentially a learning center for families who are homeschooling. So there are no rules and regulations for families who homeschool. There are recommendations, but there's no requirements. Parents can homeschool per their choice. So then for the homeschooling parents, they can choose to put their kids in a couple days a week to learn the different things. And it is running from 9 to 3:30 during the school year.
Every day? So it'd be every day?
Monday through Friday.
Okay. And I'm sure it says somewhere, but this is for children of what age?
3 to 9.
Okay. Interesting.
Let me just ask this. It's not a huge issue for me, but I was a little bit uncertain about the various and assorted documents that you submitted along with the application Nevin submitted. But do you have, are you a 501c3 tax exempt organization?
508c1a. It's an unincorporated ministry.
So are you tax exempt?
Tax exempt.
Income tax?
Yes.
Property tax?
Everything is tax exempt.
Well, property taxes is.
So-
Flaming Farm still owns the property, so
Right.
we can get taxes on it. We just.
Okay. Got it. Okay. And so what the application is about is the use.
The use of the space.
Use.
Right.
So-
And so if we approve it for, this is just sort of thinking out loud here, if we approve it to be used as a church/school, and your organization moves on a year from now, or 2 years, or 10 years from now, if Nevin wants to use that building again for horses and whatever, he's gonna have to come back here and get a change of use again from the zoning commission.
I don't think so.
Something else.
No, it wouldn't have to do a change of use. It's, I mean, farming is approved at that location.
Oh, good.
Not
point.
abandoning the
So
use.
that's a poor example of the, you know.
And I'm hoping
Yeah, okay, I
that
got it.
you guys could
I
use
got
the
it.
space even for, the party, they have the party
It's-
room.
Right.
That could be
It's
an
kind of a
additional.
moot point, it doesn't matter, if he has to come back, he has to come back, if he doesn't, he
Put
doesn't.
chickens back in there.
Yeah.
They'll love the new design.
Yeah. Good point.
Never had so
Got
good.
it.
Okay, any other comments from the commissioners? Does anyone in the public care to speak to this? We have 2 people left.
Come on.
I'm just the third.
Ready to close the public hearing?
Definitely. I move that we close the public hearing.
Okay, there's a
I'll second it.
by Ann. Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Nothing, okay. 6-0, the application, the public hearing is closed. Let's consider the application for the Fleming
So it
Farm
is a long night.
faith-based.
Again, you could simply move the draft motion as shown and as depicted without, if you didn't want to read it all.
We-
That's
we-
Thank you. Great.
You want to do that?
You could just move the draft motion in favor to approve.
I can actually say that? No.
Yes, you can.
You move,
I moved, well, I can read the first part, right?
The first part you can read.
The Town of Simsbury Zoning Commission approves application ZC 23-29 of Julie and Nevin Christensen, owners, for a special exception pursuant to section 3.4 for a church/school use located on Flaming Farm at 7 Shingle Mill Road, Assessor's Map B11, Block 404, Lot 010, Zone R40, based on the findings as shown or as listed on the draft motion dated 7/17, and based upon the following finding that the application is not expected to have any negative impacts on the above considerations.
Second.
second by Diane. It's a D&D special.
There you go.
Okay, further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Carries 6-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah.
Off the record or whatever, just thank you for all you guys do. Thank you.
Okay, general commission business. Do I hear a motion for?
No, wait a minute. I think that we deserve some update on what's going on with the litigation associated with.
Okay,
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Oh,
yes,
well, that's quite timely.
Oh,
he has it. I'm
I have a
sorry.
letter from this evening from the town attorney.
you're saying never mind?
No, I'm saying.
No, I'm saying they're saying never mind.
Request.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Dear George, you've asked me to provide an update of the above referenced land use appeals related to Vessel Holdings application for the housing development at 446. Our firm has filed its appearance in both appeals, and both appeals have been transferred to the court's land use docket. In the wetlands appeal, town appeal the town's approval of the inland wetlands application. Attorney Hollister has filed an appearance for Vessel, and Attorney Wise has filed an appearance for the property owner. A third party has filed a motion to intervene as a party plaintiff. We have filed a motion of objection. It is attached. It is not attached to you because it was it's really related to the inland wetlands, so I didn't attach it today. For Vessel Holdings, the appeal of zoning denial, we are preparing an answer to the plaintiff's complaint. For both appeals, the transcripts have been prepared and the preliminary list of documents for the record have been assembled. The next step is to request a scheduling conference and to establish court deadlines for the prosecution of appeals. I'm Robert DiCrescenzo.
I know it's not specific to us, but can somebody here who's a lawyer tell me, what does it mean where a third party has filed motion to intervene?
Somebody wants to join the lawsuit.
Okay.
As an intervener.
As a person on the, I don't know, like,
No,
on
no,
our side or their side? I don't know, yeah. Not on our, okay, of course not. Okay.
Third party,
Okay.
interesting.
So someone is
You know who
joining
that is?
Vessel, or is it the homeowners?
No, somebody's trying to join the homeowners.
Oh, the homeowners. Oh, okay.
Right, so, yeah, just so I'm clear, so the Wetlands Commission is getting sued by the HOA,
Correct.
and we're getting sued by Vessel.
Correct.
Got it. And someone else is joining the homeowners.
If you
Gotcha.
want to, yes.
Thank you, Tucker. Now I get
And
it.
that it's untimely and it's too late. That's what our complaint and response is.
Gotcha.
Thank you for what you do, George.
What I'm not seeing here is an explanation of, like, what, do we have a role in this? Is anybody gonna ask us to consider the material or the the information that's gonna be presented to the court
At some point.
At some point.
At some point.
after it's adjudicated?
At some point. I don't know when. We haven't even they haven't even set a schedule yet.
I didn't ask for a date, I'm looking
just,
for some sort of a description of the sequence of events. Let me ask it again. I'm not subject to any date and timeline, but does the members of this commission have a role in this? Are we going to be participating in the preparation or the delivery of our side of it? Or is Bob DiCrescenzo going
I don't have
to
an
take care
answer
of
for
all
you
that?
today.
I think we're out of it until the thing comes back to us from the courts.
If I
We're
could,
not providing like testimony or anything.
Why bother?
I wanted to comment on that. I think, and excuse me, Bruce, if I'm misinterpreting what you're saying, but I think what this is essentially is you're telling us the procedural status of the case. I don't see anything here about an assessment of the case, such as
Correct.
the strengths and weaknesses of the case. And I think, Bruce, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we as commissioners would like a briefing from the lawyer at some point about the merits of the claim.
We could ask for that.
Well, do we need a motion? And we'll vote on it, that the zoning commission is requesting as soon as possible an audience with the town attorney for that purpose, to get his insight on the strengths and weaknesses or whatever, an executive session or whatever it needs to be.
I request a motion if that's what you want, if that was your direction.
I think it has to be an executive session.
It would have to be an executive session, of course.
It's
We
fine
can
with
just
me.
ask him for that.
Well, does the Board of Selectmen need to request do they need to consider our request to have the services of the town attorney directed to our issue?
No, I don't think that's necessary.
Then you'll make that decision.
No, I mean, the town attorney is Bob DiCrescenzo.
Well, the town attorney is Updike, Kelly, and Spelcy. He happens to be the attorney who's assigned the work associated with our account. But the town attorney is the firm. Not a huge issue, but a fact. So, back to the point of how do we get participation in this process?
Bruce, I'm not sure that you're going to find out much, that the town attorney is going to tell you what the statute says. And in my experience with attorneys, the first thing they tell you is, well, that's what it says, but you know you could lose this case.
Well, we know that. We don't need him to tell us that, really.
I know, but that's, I mean, what are we going to get out of this
I would recommend that, if you'd like to hear from the town attorney.
I would like to hear from
arrange
you.
that, otherwise I wouldn't discuss this case in public right now.
Right.
The merits are otherwise.
Seems fair.
Right.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Let's ask the town attorney what he thinks. If he giving us a briefing would be appropriate, we'd like it.
Okay.
Well, what do we care?
Well, wait, can I make a point? I know
Sure.
it's not sure. One concern I would have is because our meetings are matters of public record, that would
It would have to be executive session.
and that's not a matter of public
Right.
record.
Right.
Oh, never mind. That was my concern.
Yeah, that's what I was
Okay.
just going to ask, is whether or not that shouldn't be in executive session.
Yeah, no, it would have to be an executive session. Well, we can ask him.
So one other question. I swear, this
Yes.
is my last one. I know tonight was obviously not the night, but can we just keep on the agenda at some point the conversation about evaluating residential
So
development?
I had it on our list from your last discussion that we would bring it back on September 6th.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, I've already forgotten, so thank you.
Well, July, the June 21st meeting was so long ago now, I forgot, what was that about? The point of residential development and bringing it back.
Just, having an
Discussion
evaluation on, a discussion on future, just,
I'll be here on September 6th, and
Okay.
I'll hear it then. Okay.
I hear a motion for adjournment, please.
I move to adjourn the meeting
Your second?
at 10 minutes of 10.
Your second.
Second.
Tony, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No opposition. It's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.